click. After Ace finished speaking, he hung up the phone without waiting for an answer, looked at the surrounding Marines with a smile on his face, and raised a finger. I'll give you 1 minute to disappear from this ship immediately. Ace was in a good mood today, so he didn't want to kill them all. All the sailors froze at the same time, and a sense of humiliation rushed into their hearts, but the strength displayed by Ace made them unable to arouse the slightest resistance. When the number 1 sailor couldn't bear the fear in his heart, he turned around and jumped into the sea. The behavior of fleeing quickly spread to all the sailors. A sea soldier jumped into the sea like a dumpling. Although Ace didn't say clearly what he would do in 1 minute, no one wants to try the consequences for themselves. Wait a minute. Ace suddenly called out to the Major General, who also wanted to jump into the sea. It was obvious that the Major General's neck was covered with a line of cold sweat, and he turned around slightly stiffly, with a smirk on his face. Why? What's wrong? Ace wanted to laugh, not understanding how such a person became a Major General. Find me a chair. Immediately, as if he had been pardoned, the Major General quickly found a deck chair for Ace from the cabin, and without looking back, he jumped into the sea with a graceful posture. Ace shook his head speechlessly, assumed the most comfortable position, and lay down on the recliner. From now on, he just needs to lie here and wait for the Ghost Spider General to come by himself. Comfortable. At this time, the Ghost Spider was standing on the deck of the main ship with a livid face, unable to control the anger in his heart. He even crushed the phone bug in his hand to death. Insanity. That's right, this guy simply doesn't know the heights of the heavens and the earth. Ghost Spider's adjutant said angrily. I'm afraid he doesn't even know your strength, my lord. The bounty is 500 million? HMPH. My lord, you have killed 1 or 2 with your own hands. The Ghost Spider didn't speak, but his hair opened his teeth and claws automatically without wind. Those who were familiar with him knew that this meant that the Ghost Spider was extremely angry. Go at full speed. Ghost Spider commanded all the warships around with exposed veins on his forehead. Today I will send this kid to hell with my own hands. Under the command of the Ghost Spider, all the warships stretched their sails to the maximum, took advantage of the sea wind, increased to the maximum speed, and headed towards the Rapeflower port. Soon, the dozen or so warships were getting closer and closer to their destination, and a warship could already be seen floating in the wind in that sea area from a distance. What's going on? There are 3 warships. A colonel asked his own question. The people around him didn't answer him, but raised their trembling right hands and pointed to the 2 sides of the warship. I think it's there. Following the man's fingers, the colonel's eyelids jumped up. The 2 piles of wreckage in the sea were the other 2 warships. Moreover, the figures swimming densely in the sea are the sailors on the 3 warships. Look, isn't that the Major General? A gunner rubbed his eyes, as if he couldn't believe it. But after the surrounding sailors looked at that position, they found that the figure swimming towards the shore with all their strength was a Major General of their base. Bastard. These guys don't even look like a navy. The Ghost Spider roared, making all the sailors tremble at the same time, and the Ghost Spider's anger had reached its peak at this moment. This is the most embarrassing time in his life. He and Ben didn't need to think too much. The embarrassing behavior of these sailors in front of him must be the fault of that Fire Fist Ace. He never wanted to kill a pirate so much. He suddenly pulled out a samurai sword from his waist, and instead of ordering his sailors to launch shelling, he jumped out of the deck of the main ship, took moon steps with his feet in the air, and his body seemed to move in an instant, heading towards the warship in front of you rushes away. He had already seen Ace lying on the recliner from afar. Why are you still lying down? Arrogant. Unforgivable. Is it finally here? Ace stood up and looked at the flying Ghost Spider, with a slightly excited expression on his face. Boom. The extremely powerful aura erupted from Ace's body and soared into the sky. The deck under his feet couldn't bear the impact of this aura, and it was shaken open like a spider's web of pits and cracks. Unexpectedly, without hesitation, he fully operated the 5th layer of the spiritual fire tempering body art. With 6 times the physical strength of the peak lieutenant general level, Ace's strength instantly breaks through to the quasi-general level. At this time, the Ghost Spider had already rushed to the top of the warship, and the samurai sword held in his right hand was surrounded by the armed arrogance that seemed to be real, and drew a half-moon trajectory in the air, and slashed straight at Ace. Under the extreme speed, a dark afterimage even appeared in the sky. The power of the quasi-general level caused the air to vibrate, and bursts of terrifying roars erupted. Good come. Ace yelled loudly, opened his posture, flipped his right hand and took out Devil Demon. His body shook, and with a buzzing sound, The same tyrannical armed domineering spirit immediately lingered over devil demon. Base. Ace slashed with all his strength, and cut it out in an instant. Where the blade passed, the howling sound of the air was extremely ear-piercing. The tower on the warship was still more than 10 meters away from Ace, but it seemed to be cut by an invisible blade in an instant. With a squeak, it was cut in half from it. Clang. Devil Demon, the samurai sword in the hands of the ghost spider, finally collided with each other. Boom. At the moment of the collision, the warship under Ace's feet seemed to be a piece of glass. Under the terrifying power of the two, they couldn't hold on for a moment. After a loud noise, it exploded and completely shattered into countless wreckage, going in all directions. At this time, the originally calm sea also set off bursts of huge waves, pushing the sailors in the sea away in an instant, and each of them tried their best to control themselves not to be swallowed by the waves in horror. Boom. The weapons in the hands of the two swung away at the same time due to the counterattack force, and their bodies were split apart at the same time. At the same time, they retreated a distance of more than 10 meters, and each fell on the wreckage of the warship. How is this possible? This scene fell into the eyes of the sailors brought by the ghost spider, and I felt that my three views had been subverted. Lieutenant General Ghost Spider is a powerhouse at the quasi-general level. He is only one step away from the general, and this move is just equal to that ace? The adults must have kept their hands. The conversations of the soldiers fell into the ears of Ghost Spider, which made his face even more gloomy. He didn't hold back the knife just now, and he was caught by that ace firmly after all his efforts? The Ghost Spider has an unreal feeling. Ha ha ha. At this moment, Ace was full of fighting spirit. He didn't use flames, but relied on his physical strength to fight against the general. Ace felt every cell in his body trembling with excitement. Come again. This time, Ace held the Devil Slayer, and faced the powerful Ghost Spider. He chose to take the initiative to attack. Ridiculous. Ghost Spider took out a katana from behind again, and looked coldly at Ace, who rushed towards him. With a hint of anger of being underestimated, the Ghost Spider stepped on his feet, and his body turned into an afterimage. He jumped up, and the two knives in his hands carried a powerful momentum, and slashed at Ace with two crossed sword auras. Clang. Facing the oncoming sword chi, Ace didn't choose to dodge at all. He chopped off the head with the Devil Demon in his hand, and suddenly chopped the two sword chi into pieces with absolute strength. The shattered sword energy splashed onto the wreckage of the surrounding warships, causing the already shattered wooden planks to be instantly cut into nitrate powder. After smashing the sword energy, Ace didn't say much. Zumo took advantage of the momentum and slashed forward, slashing towards the Ghost Spider's chest. Whoosh. Ghost Spider is worthy of being a strong quasi-general. Ace's knife is surprisingly difficult, but he can still cross his swords to his chest in an instant, which will block Ace's attack. At the same time, his body suddenly twisted, and his legs swept across two amazing arcs in the air. Land feet. The astonishing strength of the legs swung two sword chi, cutting straight to Ace's head. Haha, you are not the only one who knows this trick. Ace kicked up. His legs also slid through the air, feeling the space being compressed at the toes, and the 2 feet that were far stronger and sharper than before collided with the Ghost Spider's feet. Ping. Ping. There were 2 crisp sounds. This time it turned out that the haze feet of the Ghost Spider shattered first, turning into shattered sword energy and splashing away. And although Ace's 2 hazy feet were a little smaller, he still slashed at the Ghost Spider resolutely. Clang. In a hurry, Ghost Spider reluctantly turned his body sideways. 2 sword chi flashed past his face in an instant, and cut into the sea, splashing a large amount of water. A scratch appeared on the Ghost Spider's cheek, and strands of blood slowly flowed down. The Ghost Spider's expression has become extremely serious. At the beginning, Ace showed the strength of the quasi-general level, which surprised him very much. But after this move, he discovered that Ace's pure power was even better than him. The Ghost Spider has been at the quasi-general level for many years, and it still loses to this Ace in terms of pure strength? You must know that according to the information, this Esco is only 12 years old. I'm afraid no one will believe this matter if I tell it today. I admit, you are already qualified to let me use my full strength. Ghost Spider's voice was low, as if he finally became serious. Boy Ace, do you know why I am called Ghost Spider? Ace also felt the change in the Ghost Spider's state. It seemed that the other party finally regarded him as an opponent of the same level. Let me show you my true strength. The Ghost Spider put on a posture, and a strange aura suddenly emerged from its body, and the loose hair behind it suddenly floated out of thin air. Then, He seemed to be able to control every hair on the top of his head. Under his thoughts, bunches of long hair were quickly entangled and twisted together, and finally became 6 arms that looked like spider legs. The 6 arms stretched to his back, and he pulled out 6 samurai swords one after another, aiming the sharp blades at Ace. At this moment, Ace's eyes narrowed slightly. Before that, he always thought that the ghost spider was a person with the ability of the spider fruit. But after seeing the ghost spider's ability with his own eyes, he realized that he was so wrong. The ghost spider in front of him is a quasi-general strong who has mastered the return of life and has exercised his body to the extreme. And the return of life is an advanced physical technique that can freely control all organs of the body, and Lu Chi and lion cuddling in CP9 can also use it. But Ace wouldn't be so stupid as to think that the ghost spider's return of life would be at the same level as Lu Chi and Nugget, because the purple hair of the ghost spider turned pitch black at this moment. Even the hair can cover domineering. The domineering posture of the ghost spider holding 8 long knives also fell into the eyes of the sailors at this time. It's the first time I've seen Lord Ghost Spider go all out. Yu Haibing said excitedly. This is already considered 8 swordsmanship. Except Lord Ghost Spider, who else can do it? That's right, my lord's life return has already reached the level where he can control his hair. Since my lord has already used this trick, the battle should be resolved soon. The powerful posture of the ghost spider made the sailors regain their confidence in themselves. You have to pick it up. The ghost spider let out a low cry, stepped on its feet, and rushed straight to Ace. The 8 long swords suddenly slashed in a strange sequence, intertwining a web of sword energy in front of him. It's like a preying spider casting a deadly poisonous web towards its prey. Boom boom boom. There was no way to completely avoid the sword energy of this density. Ace raised his knife as fast as he could to block it, but several swords still struck him. With the same physical strength of a quasi-general, Ace's arrogance cannot completely offset the impact on his body. Bloodstains began to appear on his body. Of course, Ace is not powerless to fight back. With his strength surpassing that of the ghost spider, he occasionally slashed at him a few times, which also caused him a lot of trouble. Boom. Boom. The sword energy between the two of them was vertical and horizontal, and broken sword energy shot out continuously. Once it hit the surrounding warships, it would leave a terrifying sword mark, causing irreversible damage to the warships. Withdraw. Quickly withdraw. After one of the warships was split in half by Ace's unintentional sword chi, the commanders finally understood that they were not even qualified to watch the battle here. One by one shouted loudly, urging his men to quickly turn the bow and stay away from the center of the battle as soon as possible. Boom. The two collided violently again, and they separated temporarily. At this time, there were more than a dozen bloodstains on Ace's body, and blood kept gushing out. And the ghost spider on the opposite side didn't feel that well either. One of the 6 arms entwined with hair had been completely broken off, and the other ones were also slightly broken at this time. Squeak. The hair on the ghost spider's head was tangled and twisted together again, forming a new spider arm, and grabbed the fallen samurai sword again. How long can you hold on? Ghost Spider pointed to Ace's bloody body, as if he felt that he had already won. After all, on the surface, he was in much better condition than Ace, who was covered in blood. Haha. Ace didn't care, but asked with a smile, I want to ask you, how long can your hair last? After this battle, you're going to be bald. HMPH. You were courting death. Ghost Spider was suffocated by Ace's breath, and his face became gloomy again. Maybe his hair will become less and less after being tortured like this. Ace didn't continue to dwell on this topic, but suddenly withdrew his smile, raised his hand and tore off his tattered top. Okay. Thank you for your cooperation. I have roughly understood my level of strength. Now, I have to be serious. While speaking, Ace raised his hands from both sides, and endless flames gushed out of his body crazily, covering it, forming a huge colorful fireball. The light of the flames danced slowly on Ace's face, setting off his heroic figure invisibly, like the Emperor of Flames who controls the flames. With a calm expression, Ace said indifferently, Are you ready? The big knife in Ace's hand slowly raised above his head, and the 4-color flames around him swirled and entangled on Devil Demon, one after another. The temperature of the entire sea area rose rapidly at this moment, and the seawater around Ace quickly evaporated into gas, making the ghost spider's livid face wet with water vapor. He finally remembered Ace's nickname. This Firefist Ace hadn't used his flame ability until now. Damn. You look down on me. The ghost spider let out a roar. As a powerhouse at the quasi-general level, He has never felt such a strong sense of humiliation. Then you can try my trick too. Ghost Spider's face was full of killing intent, with 8 long swords lined up in a row, and then his pupils suddenly dilated, and within a second, the 8 knives slashed at Ace at the same time. There was a sword aura several meters long. The sword chi was strung together in a row, and in the process of rushing forward, the sword chi behind hit the front one after another, and then quickly merged together. When the 8 sword chi were all fused together, the sword chi had expanded into a huge sword chi nearly 30 meters long. The sword energy is as solid as the essence, and in the process of advancing, the sea surface is cut into a dark abyss by the sharp air leaked out. I want to show you how powerful a general-level swordsman is. The Ghost Spider's expression was ferocious, and while speaking, he raised his feet and threw out 2 haze feet, blending into the forward-flying sword aura, which made the sword aura suddenly strengthen by 3 points. Ah! Facing the huge sword energy coming, Ace just sneered. The 4-color fireball with a diameter of 10 meters around him had all been integrated into the blade of Devil Demon at this moment. So he didn't need to talk nonsense at all. Zumo suddenly slashed. A flaming saber energy with 4 kinds of rays of light slashed down with the Devil Demon in Ace's hand, and flew out of Ace's body in an instant. The size of this sword energy is not exaggerated, it is only about 10 meters, but no one dares to underestimate its power. Wherever it passes, the seawater is crazily evaporated, and even the sea surface is sunken several meters down. In the next second, Ace's flaming sword energy had collided with the Ghost Spider's sword energy. There was no huge roar between the two, but they quickly annihilated each other silently. At this moment, the slightly smaller flame saber chi showed stronger toughness, while the sword chi slashed by the Ghost Spider seemed to melt and shrink under the flames of Ace like snow covered by the scorching sun. After all, Ace's move once made Chiquan extremely embarrassed, let alone facing the sword energy of the quasi-general. It sounds long, but when the two touched, it was only a moment. It seemed that the more powerful sword energy disappeared first, but Ace's flame knife energy still maintained of its power, and instantly fell on the Ghost Spider with terrifying heat. Immediately, the flames exploded, engulfing the astonished Ghost Spider in an instant. The burning flames were dazzling, as if another sun appeared here, causing countless sailors to fall into a state of temporary blindness. But this time, Ace didn't take the flame back immediately, and still stared at the center of the flame, where the breath of the Ghost Spider still didn't disappear. Really. The next second, a distressed figure rushed out of the flames in a panic. There was a black knife mark on his chest, and his body was scorched black by the flames. As soon as he emerged, he plunged into the seawater, trying his best to extinguish the remaining flames on his body with the help of seawater. Peeved. After a while, when the Ghost Spider came out of the sea again with a look of grief and anger, Ace's expression became weird. The Ghost Spider's original long hair that reached down to its calves had been completely burned off, and it became a real bald head. And the 6 spider arms that made his name, of course, have completely disappeared now. Your hair, it seems that the quality of the hair is not very good. Ace made a timely repair. What? The Ghost Spider's eyes became red and bloodshot, and it let out a deep roar. How could his hair quality be bad? He doesn't allow others to insult his hair. Wrong. That's not the point. The Ghost Spider took a deep breath and said, "Your knife is indeed powerful, but you can only swing it once. Whether it was at the Navy headquarters or in the capital of 7 waters, you were already exhausted after swinging the knife. Let me see how you can fight me now." Ace didn't speak, and lowered his head, as if he had really been poked into a weak point. This made Ghost Spider more certain of his thoughts, looked at Ace not far away, and clenched the knife in his hand. With the next blow, he will slit the opponent's throat. But at this moment, Ace raised his head and looked at the Ghost Spider with mocking eyes. "You said, I can only swing a knife." Seeing that Devil Demon in Ace's hand raised above his head again, Ghost Spider suddenly felt something bad in his heart. Call. The flames were reflected in his pupils again, and he was horrified to find that Ace, who was opposite him, slashed at him 3 times at the same time in an instant. 3 terrifying flaming saber airs intersected into a web, covering all the escape directions of the Ghost Spider in an instant. Do not. It only came to let out a desperate roar, and the Ghost Spider was completely submerged by the raging flames, and its entire body melted into the flames. Ah! Ace slapped it casually, and retracted the flames from the sky back into his body. If the Ghost Spider turned around and ran away, he might still be able to escape, but he completely underestimated the speed at which Ace's strength improved, and he still wanted to counter-kill the exhausted Ace. Indeed, not long ago, Ace could only swing a knife, but now his physical strength has increased dramatically, and it is already enough to swing such a slash. In the distance, the sailors on the warship rubbed their eyes and slowly recovered their vision. But when they looked at the battlefield, Ace was the only one standing there. Gudong. I don't know who swallowed his saliva first, and then the sound of gurgling suddenly came and went. Ghost. Where is Mr. Ghost Spider? Someone couldn't believe the facts before him, and stammered out this question. But there was silence on the many warships, and no one answered him alone. That terrible truth, no one wants to say it himself. Huh. Suddenly, a piercing scream broke the silence here, and Ace, who was standing still, suddenly rushed towards them. Run away. We fought him. Start the boat. Hurry up and sail the boat. Get your weapons ready. Some people wanted to run, some people wanted to resist, and the warships suddenly became noisy and fell into chaos. Boom. With a loud noise, Ace, who was covered in flames, seemed to be Shira from hell, and crashed onto the deck of the main ship of the fleet. The entire warship shook violently under the terrifying impact. This time, the sailors finally calmed down again, because they found that in the face of Ace's terrifying strength, whether they were fighting or fleeing, they had no hope at all. Therefore, they could only focus their eyes on the figure that descended from the sky in despair. I saw Ace raised his hat, grinned and showed his snow-white teeth, and showed them a harmless smile, saying, "Robbery." On the sea, a somewhat dilapidated warship sailed slowly with the sea breeze. Looking carefully, the deck was densely packed with nearly naked strong men. Under the howling sea wind, these strong men couldn't bear the cold, and they were shivering from the cold. In the captain's room of the warship, a major general wearing only white underpants, holding a phone bug in his hand, was reporting to the opposite side, Yuan. Marshal. Of course, the reason why he was known as a major general was because there was a major general logo on his underpants. You mean, Ace robbed you all? You were all left with a pair of underwear? Sengoku's tone was very unkind. These trash, as a navy, don't even have the awareness to fight pirates. In the end it was so embarrassing. Where is the warship? He put you all on one warship, what about other warships? All. Was burned by him. Burned? The tone of the warring states suddenly rose a lot. Although the warships of these branches were not as good as the warships of the headquarters, the dozen of warships were all lost by the fire, which was enough to make the warring states feel distressed. Call. Suck. The major general could clearly feel the heavy breathing of the marshal of the warring states period, and his heart became more and more uneasy. He knew that he would never have a chance to be promoted, and now he only hoped that he could keep his position as a major general in this branch. How about casualties? The casualties of ordinary sailors are not big, but Mr. Ghost Spider. The major general didn't say much, but the meaning was already obvious. After a little hesitation, the major general continued, Fire Fist Ace also asked me to give you a sentence. Say. He said. The Ghost Spider wanted to kill him, so he killed him, and he can't blame him. But he still looked at Garp and ZFA's face, and he showed mercy for the last time and let these sea soldiers go. But after this time, if there is another battle, he promises that not a single living sailor will stay behind. On the other side of the phone bug, there was no response for a long time. Obviously Sengoku understands that the original conflict between Ace and the Navy was mainly on Akainu alone, but after the attack by the Ghost Spider, Ace will completely stand on the opposite side of the Navy. He will show no mercy to any naval man who attack him. And before he knew it, in less than a year, that kid who had barely reached the rank of lieutenant general now had the strength to kill a quasi-general. If Ace hadn't been forced out of the Navy, maybe there would be another character in the Navy who surpassed the admiral. Hey, the major general heard a long sigh from Zhang Guo, but then Zhang Guo's voice became firm again. Notify the bounty department to increase the reward of Fire Fist Ace to 600 million Baileys. In addition, the intelligence department will immediately investigate the identities of all members of Yandi pirates for me, and conduct an investigation on the 2 pirates who resisted the shells. Offer a reward. Now that he is already in the opposite position, as the marshal, Warring States has completely put away the benevolence of women and restored his usual iron blood. Although he feels a little bit annoyed, he is more responsible for the interests of the entire Navy. Oh, don't worry, Luffy. Ace was lying on the bed, his face was a little pale, and he comforted him. I'm just a little tired, I'm fine. At this time, there was a circle of people around his bed. Luffy, who was originally mischievous, was unusually honest at this time. Holding a bottle of wound medicine in his hand, under Robin's command, He carefully poured it on Ace's chest. Apply to the wound. Willie and Brooke looked at Ace with admiration. They have seen Ace show off his power more than once, but every shot of Ace will still leave a deep impression on them. While Bruno and Kaku stood near the door, their eyes were more complicated. At first, they still doubted Ace's strength, but in a blink of an eye, the quasi-general level ghost spider had been reduced to ashes and scattered in the sea. It's really strong. Kaku couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Yes. Bruno looked at Ace with fiery eyes. Perhaps, the fate of our hometown will really change because of him. Okay. Alright. Stop painting, Luffy. Ace said helplessly, you've already painted me 3 times. Oh. He stretched out his hand to smear Ace a few more times, and then Luffy reluctantly moved away. Ace was really speechless. Luffy applied the medicine to him. He was a little touched at first, but he didn't know how this kid's brain circuit was long. After a while, he fell in love with the feeling of applying medicine. You can't stop applying the medicine. Lifting Luffy off the bed, Ace put on a shirt and asked Robin. How's the inventory going on with the loot from the Navy? It's all been processed, and a total of 800 million Baileys have been exchanged for treasures. Robin took out a small notebook and flipped through it. In addition, we originally had 300 million Baileys on board, so our the total assets are a total of 2 billion Baileys. So much? Ace was taken aback. Is that too much? If it weren't for the captain, you would have burned all the warships. This number can be multiplied several times. Robin's eyes flashed a few traces of resentment. Cough cough. Ace coughed twice in embarrassment. He originally thought that it was useless to keep those warships in his hands. After all, it's too ostentatious to drive a warship, and it's not very convenient to go anywhere. Besides, it takes a lot of manpower to drive a warship. But how could he have imagined that Cobra, the king of Alabasta, offered to help him deal with these stolen goods? As the king of a country, using his power to deal with a mere dozen or so warships is simply an easy task. But unfortunately, Ace is already on fire. Ha. Ha ha. Ace turned to look at the door of the room, and began to change the subject a little bluntly. Bruno, come here. Although the situation is a bit embarrassing now, Bruno still walked over with an awkward smile. Lord Ace. Baroque work needs money to build an intelligence network, and you can go to Robin to get 100 million Baileys later. Yes. Bruno heard that what Ace said was serious, and immediately responded seriously. Willie. Yes. Willie stepped forward. You send 5 Yanwei, and bring 500 million Baileys to the capital of 7 Waters, to protect Bingshan, the president of Carrera Corporation. Ace confessed. The remaining 5 Yanwei also stay in Baroque to work. Please help. There are still too few high-end combat powers here. But Willie was obviously a little hesitant. After all 10 Yanweis would be dispatched in this way. Haha, as long as you follow me. Ace smiled and patted Willie on the shoulder. Yes. For Ace's trust, Willie felt warm in his heart. Just when Ace thought the topic shift was successful. Lily's father's injury has been treated almost. He should be able to sail. Robin's voice came into Ace's ears leisurely. The resentment in this voice didn't decrease in the slightest, making Ace's face froze. What's the situation? I've already changed the subject. Give the captain some face. Originally, Robin was really in awe of Ace, but when she became familiar with Luffy, she less and less regarded Ace. Ace is outraged. However, you are good looking, so I don't care about you. Ace complained a few words and asked, where is Lily? I still want to try his father's heavenly food. I've asked, but you can only make that kind of food in a place with a volcano. Robin replied coldly. You know all of this. Ace was really surprised this time. It seems that Robin's wisdom is really not covered. After having this girl, many things are relieved. But since the volcano was mentioned, Ace thought of a good place nearby. Small garden. The place where the blue ghost Tori and the red ghost Brokey duel. 2 days later, although Lily's father, Panzefri, was still a little weak and had slight internal injuries, it no longer affected his free movement. Knowing that Ace not only saved him, but also helped his daughter, Panzefri was overwhelmed with gratitude, and vowed to cook the most perfect heavenly food for Ace after he found the volcano. So, Ace, Luffy, Robin, Willie, and Brooke took the submarine, and the pirate ship let Pansy and his daughter take it. Of course, before they left, they filled a boat full of ingredients and spices, making adequate preparations for the cooking in a few days. Before setting off, several people also discussed the next plan. They will go to the small garden first, then go to the Gemini Strait to take Luo Hu, and then go directly to the reverse mountain to go to Wangchen Island in the East China Sea to find the whereabouts of Hades. After making the plan, the two ships slowly moved out of the rapeseed flower port and headed towards the small garden. But at this moment, a few kilometers away from here, on a pirate ship of the Don Quixote family, all the combat cadres of the family were standing on the deck. Violet, have you seen it clearly? Torbol's expression was serious. Who is the murderer who killed Diamante? Violet is a beautiful woman in her 20s, with long brown-black hair and a red flower on her head. At this moment, her thumb and index finger formed a circle, exuding a lavender light, surrounding her eye sockets. My staring fruit just allows me to see farther away. Violet frowned and said, but you can't read people's hearts. How can you know who the murderer is? However, I saw Fire Fist Ace. Huh? Torbol's eyes froze suddenly. He couldn't be more familiar with this name. Virgo died at the hands of this kid. Although this time they came to investigate the murderer who killed Diamante, but since they met this ace, they must not let him go. And many more. At this moment, Torbol seemed to suddenly think of something. His eyes opened wider and wider, and he muttered to himself, no way? What's the matter? Pika, who was huge, had an incomparably piercing voice. Seeing that Torbol's expression was not right, he immediately stepped forward to ask. I should know who the murderer is. Torbol's expression was extremely complicated, with disbelief at first, followed by deep-seated hatred. Who is it? All the cadres came together and stared at Torbol with burning eyes. Torbol's face was ashen, and he squeezed out 2 words from between his teeth. Ace. What? Pika screamed out in shock. Not only did he kill Virgo, but Diamante was also killed by him. I'm going to tear him alive. Immediately, all the combat cadres shouted out, Ship, catch them. You can't let him go. He actually killed our 2 top cadres. Immediately, someone rushed towards the cabin, preparing to steer the pirate ship and chase Ace and the others. Even Torbol was furious, his thoughts controlled by the strong killing intent, and he wished he could rush over and tear Ace into pieces now. But at this moment, a girl in a maid outfit stood up holding a newspaper. Wait a minute. BABY5. What do you want? Don't you want to avenge Diamante and Virgo? Pika's eyes were very unfriendly. Although BABY5 is also a family cadre, his status is far inferior to those of the highest cadre. Baby 5 turned pale. When she was a child, she was beaten half to death for laughing at Pika's voice, so she is still a little afraid of Pika. That's not what I meant. Baby 5 hastily handed over the newspaper in his hand. I don't think you have read today's newspaper. Newspaper. Pika knew that Baby 5 didn't have the guts to play tricks on him, so he reached out and took the newspaper and looked up. There were only 2 headlines on the front page. The first one, today, the Kiwahei appointment ceremony will be officially launched in the Chambord Islands. 7 powerful pirates have arrived one after another. The second article, but there is only a single reward order. The above name is extremely dazzling. Portgas d Ace. Heinous crime, bounty, 600 million Baileys. Seeing this number, it was as if a basin of cold water was poured on Pika's head, extinguishing all the killing intent on him and making him speechless. How? How is it possible? Pika kept repeating in a low voice, if the newspaper in front of them was true, what else could they rely on for revenge? Pika. Torbol pushed Pika, and seeing that he hadn't moved, he grabbed the newspaper. 600 million Baileys, Torbol exclaimed, Quasi-General. Once the bounty exceeds 600 million Baileys, then he will definitely have at least the strength of a Quasi-General. What? This kid's bounty is so high. All the cadres who were walking towards the cabin stopped, their eyes flickering. They want revenge, not to die. Should the young master be notified? Rao Ji suggested. No. Torbol flatly refused. The young master is still attending the appointment ceremony of Chi Wuhai. For our family, the title of Chi Wuhai is more important. During this period, Violet kept her head down slightly, as if she was thinking about something. Then she seemed to have made up her mind suddenly, and suddenly raised her head and said, just now. I saw that Ace and the others mentioned the ancient weapon, Pluto. The word, Pluto, seems to have a special magical power, making all the cadres focus on Violet at once. In order to match the ability of the fruit, I practiced lip language, so I can understand what they said. Violet's words immediately caused Torbol to fall into a tangle, but after a while, the allure of Pluto still prevailed. Contact the young master immediately. Torbol gritted his teeth and said, this is no longer a situation we can deal with. The young master has been hiding his strength, and he has already reached the level of a quasi-general. so as long as we cooperate, we can definitely get rid of this boy. Violet, and BABY5. You two continue to follow and report to us the location of Firefist Ace at any time. Yes. Violet and Baby 5 agreed, immediately boarded another smaller boat, and chased in the direction of Ace and the others. It's just that Torable didn't see the look in Violet's eyes before leaving, which was a sense of revenge. Ace has the ability to kill the top cadres of the two families in a row, and let Violet understand that this is an opportunity to completely eliminate the Don Quixote family. So she mentioned Pluto when Torable retreated, just to let the Don Quixote family collide head-on with that powerful Ace. Only in this way can she have the opportunity to bury the entire Don Quixote family. She has been waiting for this opportunity for too long. Father, this time, I will definitely avenge you. Violet secretly wiped away a tear from the corner of her eye. She is Violet, the cadre of the Don Quixote family, and the former royal princess of Dressrosa. 2 years ago, the Don Quixote family ruined her family and killed her relatives. This hatred is inseparable. Chambord Islands, Mangrove Island. This was originally the most chaotic and lawless area in the Chambord Islands, but at this time there was not a single pirate on the entire island, and there were countless sailors guarding the main roads. In the center of the island, in a newly built luxurious hall, 7 big pirates have entered one after another. In the center of the hall, at a huge round table, all 7 people had already sat in their seats. Doflamingo. You're here too? Crocodile looked sullenly, squinting at Doflamingo who was sitting not far from him. Heh, isn't this the stinky crocodile? You can come, why can't I? Doflamingo let out a strange smile. I just don't know if your left hand still hurts? Huh? Crocodile's right hand suddenly exerted force, crushing the handle of the chair in his hand. When he failed to challenge Whitebeard in the New World and was seriously injured, he met Doflamingo again, but this guy attacked him without hesitation. His left hand was lost in that battle, court death. The enemy was extremely jealous when they met. Crocodile disappeared in his seat in an instant, and appeared in front of Doflamingo in the next second, with a golden hook in his hand with a few strands of sand, and suddenly stabbed Doflamingo brother Ming's head. Ha. You're really welcome. The fingers of Doflamingo's right hand trembled a few times, and the transparent silk thread instantly blocked the golden hook. Boom. A blast of air exploded from the place where the two fought, blowing away all the sailor guards around the main hall, and the decorations around the main hall fell to the ground, making it a mess. But the strange thing is that the round table in the center of the hall did not move at all and was not affected in the slightest. Even the terrifying airwave dissipated silently and completely when it hit the remaining Shi Wuhai. The two separated instantly due to the impact, and then bounced back, brewing a more terrifying collision. Whoosh. In the next moment, a strong man with the appearance of a giant bear suddenly appeared between the two of them. His palms had been taken out of the gloves and were held flat on both sides of his body. Boom. Boom. The attacks of Crocodile and Doflamingo bombarded the strong man's palms at the same time, but this time it was even more strange. The powerful force they bombarded seemed to sink into the sea in an instant, leaving only 2 soft pups. Ring. If traveling, where do you want to go? The strong man asked calmly. Tyrant Bear. The two turned over at the same time and dodged away. Looking at the meatball in the palm of the bear, their pupils suddenly shrank. Putting on the gloves again, the bear's expression remained indifferent. Today is Kiwahe's appointment ceremony. If you mess around here again, I will give you 2 opportunities to travel for free. The voice was calm, but with a wordless sense of oppression. Oh, a bunch of rude men. Hancock's seats are all snake body thrones, and he is already a little impatient at this time. Moria and Jinbei sat in their seats, just glanced at them, then turned back quietly, waiting for the arrival of the head of the Navy. As for Hawkeye, his legs were crossed on the table, his eyes were tightly closed, and he didn't even have the interest to turn his head to take a look. Ha, how arrogant. Do you think you are stronger than me? Doflamingo squinted his eyes and stared at the bear. The floor around him had already begun to squirm, as if it would turn into a thread and shoot out at any time. Just before the melee resumed, a golden beam of light suddenly shot in from outside the hall, and after several refractions, it projected onto the main seat of the hall. Yo, it's really scary. The light gathered together and piled up into a yellow suit, the General Huang Yuan, who sat casually on a chair, with a lazy look. You are really strong. But if you continue to fight like this, I will lose face. Huang Yuan spread his hands, looking very reluctant. In that case, I will have to take action. By the way, you have tried. Does it feel like being kicked by the speed of light? Hey, I'm here today to be Shichibukai, and I don't plan to fight the Admiral. Doflamingo laughed strangely, and returned to his seat with strange steps. And Crocodile also snorted coldly, turned into a burst of mad sand, and swept back. It is not a wise decision to fight the Admiral at this time. That's right. After all, we will be regarded as a camp in the future. Huang Yuan was very satisfied with the reaction of the two, and said with a smile, "From today, the Navy will cancel your reward and give you the legal right to plunder. But when the Navy issues a summons to you, you must immediately gather to assist the Navy. Is there a problem?" The smile on Huang Yuan's face gradually disappeared, and he never expected that anyone would dare to ask questions. It seems that these arrogant pirates really need to be taught some lessons. Let them know who is the real master of this sea. But when he looked in the direction of the sound, the desire to do it disappeared instantly. It's Hawkeye. Akainu is still lying on the hospital bed. Huang Yuan has no awareness of dedication. "Mahawk, what's your problem?" Although he didn't dare to do anything, but as a representative of the Navy, he must maintain the necessary majesty, so he still chose to call Hawkeye by his first name. Hawkeye didn't care what Huang Yuan called him, and said, "If you cancel the bounty, can you cancel someone else's?" "Of course, the bounty offered by your subordinates can also be cancelled." Huang Yuan was a little surprised why Hawkeye asked this question, but as far as I know, Mahawk, you don't have your own pirate group. You want to help who cancels? Ace. As soon as Hawkeye opened his mouth, he immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. The name seemed to have a magical power, the 7 Shichibukai, except for the tyrant bear. All 6 turned their heads to look at Hawkeye at the same time. Portgas d Ace. Hawkeye repeated Ace's full name again, as if afraid that the yellow ape might not have heard it clearly. I agree. Hancock, who had always been dismissive of everyone present, seemed to have turned into a little girl again at this time, raising his right hand high, expressing his approval with excitement. "Hawk. Your Excellency Hawkeye, are you kidding me?" Doflamingo's face was already gloomy, and Ace was his sworn enemy. "What do you take the title of Kibahe for? You ask everyone. Besides this woman, who else would agree? Do you want to die?" Hancock stood up slowly, ready to strike at any time. Doflamingo ignored Hancock at all, but looked around with some complacency. Sure enough, no one agreed, and most people still agreed with him. If Kiwahe's privileges are used casually like this, it would be too cheap. But next second. "I agree," Crocodile said, smoking a cigar. "I agree." Moria, who had been shrinking in the shadows, said the same. The old man also agrees. Jinbei smiled and sat up straight. Doflamingo's smile froze on his face. He felt like most of the Shichibukai present had slapped him together. This face can be said to be shocking. Although no one really slapped him, Doflamingo always felt that his cheeks were burning hot and painful. Crocodile exhaled a puff of smoke rings, and taunted Doflamingo again with the word, at the right time. He will not give up this opportunity to give the enemy eye drops. Seeing that Doflamingo's face darkened again, Crocodile felt his whole mood brighten up. Of course, Crocodile was also secretly startled at this time, and glanced at the people present without showing any trace. It's okay for Hawkeye to speak for Captain Ace, but what about Hancock, Mariah, and Jinbei? At this time, he thought of the fact that Ace asked him not to announce the relationship between the two, and let him secretly develop the Baroque work club. Suddenly, a bold idea appeared in his mind. Crocodile murmured, No way. Could it be that these people are all Captain Ace's subordinates, and are also the forces secretly developed by the captain? He couldn't believe this horrible guess at all. But at this moment, Moria, who had always been indifferent and silent, seemed to feel something, and suddenly turned to Crocodile and showed a meaningful smile. What are you laughing at? Crocodile was stunned, and even forgot to put the cigar in his hand into his mouth. Then his eyes slowly widened, and he couldn't help but swear in his heart. I'm going. It's so fucking good. The captain is too strong. There are only 7 people in Shichibukai, and 5 of them are Captain Ace's subordinates? Crocodile thought too much, except for him and Moria, the rest of them were not Ace's subordinates. But at this moment, the image of Ace also grew up unprecedentedly in Crocodile's heart. In the main hall at this time, apart from Doflamingo, the one with the ugliest face was the yellow ape. Subconsciously, he would not believe that the people in front of him had a close relationship with Ace. After all, Ace was only so old, how could he possibly have an intersection with all the people in front of him? From his point of view, These people took advantage of Ace's incident and deliberately teamed up to give him a blow. Ha. Ha ha. You are very good. Huang Yuan laughed back in anger. His original lazy temperament had disappeared, his body was shining with golden light, and he was on the verge of going berserk. Da da da. A group of Chi Wuhai pushed away the chairs under them, stood up slowly, stared at the yellow monkey on the main seat, and their eyes began to release dangerous light. If the battle is really inevitable, none of the people present are really cowardly. War is imminent. Whoosh! Suddenly, a figure suddenly appeared behind Huang Yuan, and gently pressed Huang Yuan's shoulder. Huang Yuan, don't be impulsive. This time, even Hawkeye, who had been expressionless all this time, frowned seriously, and even the supreme sharp knife, Yi, was slightly unsheathed behind his back. Warring States. Hawkeye called out the man's name. The current admiral of the Navy, Sengoku, is a superpower beyond the rank of admiral, and a character who is really on the same level as Hawkeye. So even Hawkeye had to take it seriously at this time. Hello, Your Excellency Mahawk. Sengoku's tone was very calm, but with a trace of unquestionable. Ace's bounty will definitely not be cancelled. Why? Hancock said angrily. No reason. Sengoku glanced at Hancock indifferently with his hands behind his back. This is the rule of the Navy. If you think it is unreasonable, you can turn around and leave now. Don't worry, because today is the appointment ceremony of Shichibukai, so no Navy will stop you until you leave the Chambord Islands. Humph. Hancock snorted coldly, and actually turned around and left. Compared with self-willedness, who can compare with the Pirate Empress? But as soon as she took 2 steps, she found that Hawkeye was blocking her. He just promised not to do anything in the Chambord Islands. If you leave now, I can guarantee that once you leave the islands, there will definitely be an admiral-level navy waiting for you there. Everyone at the scene focused their expressions at the same time, and turned their eyes to the warring states in the center of the hall, and found that his expression was calm, and he didn't even refute Hawkeye's words. Old fox. A group of people cursed secretly. It seems that there is really an ambush outside the Chambord Islands. What? If someone stepped forward to stop Hancock, she wouldn't even bother, but she had seen Hawkeye and Ace together in the capital of 7 Waters before, so she blushed all of a sudden. It must be Mr. Ace who wants me to stay. Does he want me to become Shichibukai? Is this a confession? Hancock's brainpower is also superb. It is estimated that in a while, she will be able to brainpower enough to have a baby. Hawkeye watched Hancock speechlessly for a while and returned to the table and sat down again. He did remind Hancock because of Ace. But what the hell is a confession? Are young people nowadays so jumpy in their thinking? Okay, since no one wants to leave, let's officially start today's appointment ceremony. Sengoku didn't care much about the relationship between Hancock and Ace, and the role of the Kibahe was mainly to deter pirates in the first half of the Great Route. So as long as not everyone is related to Ace. It's just that he doesn't know. It's true that not everyone, but it's almost the same. At this moment, after being slapped in the face, Doflamingo, who had been silent all this time, suddenly answered a phone call. I don't know what was said on the other side, and Doflamingo's expression fluctuated. Hate, fear, surprise, so many emotions appearing on a person's face at the same time, it can be said to be very exciting. Not long after, Doflamingo hung up the phone, took a deep breath and said, Marshal of the Warring States period, I have something urgent to deal with, so I have to leave now. However, you have to reserve my position in Kiwahe. Otherwise, Tianlong people, it's hard to explain. Doflamingo didn't explain it clearly, but for the first time Sengoku's expression fluctuated. In fact, Doflamingo killed his adopted son Corazon, and he wished he could slap him to death. But this guy used to be a celestial dragon, and the nobles on Marie Joya seemed to have something in his hands, so although the strength of the Warring States period was very strong, under the orders of the nobles, there's nothing you can do about Doflamingo. Okay. There was a haze on Zhang Guo's face. Breakthrough. Doflamingo glanced triumphantly at everyone present, as if he could regain the face he had just lost. Then, he rushed out from the hall, his fingers trembled, and the transparent silk thread shot towards the clouds in the sky, pulling him into the air and moving towards the distance at an extremely fast speed. The person on the phone just now was Torbol. Doflamingo already knew everything. He will not only kill Ace himself this time, but also seize the ancient weapon Pluto to destroy this annoying world. Huang Yuan, follow up and see what this guy wants to do. Zhang Guo gave the order with a gloomy face. Then, a yellow flash also cut through the sky, chasing in the direction where Doflamingo left. Ow! Deafening roars of beasts came from the jungle on the small island, and groups of huge shadows could be vaguely seen moving in the jungle. Hee. Hey, Ace. This island seems very interesting. Luffy got out of the submarine's cabin a long time ago, sniffed excitedly, and asked, "Is this the little garden you mentioned? I seem to smell adventure. Ha ha ha." "Well, let's go," Ace said with a smile. "You have been exercising very seriously these days, so go and have fun today. But remember to eat at the volcano in the center of the island at noon. Truly heavenly food." Hearing the food, Luffy's eyes lit up immediately. He jumped into the jungle and shouted loudly, "I'm looking for meat." Seeing that Luffy quickly disappeared into the dense forest, Robin asked with some concern, "There seems to be a beast in this forest, is it okay to let Luffy go in alone?" "Haha, don't worry. Luffy is my younger brother," Ace said confidently. "You can worry about those so-called beasts." Over the past few days, under his training, Luffy has been able to skillfully use the ordinary skills of rubber fruits, and even the second gear can be used relatively freely. These animals are not Luffy's opponents. Sure enough, in the next second, Luffy's laughter came from the woods, as well as the sounds of various animals running wildly. Facts have proved that compared to beasts, Luffy who can still fly is more terrifying. Rumble. Robin was still lamenting the strength of the strange pair of brothers, when suddenly a large area of trees was knocked down in the jungle in front of him, and then a giant with a battle axe came out with big strides. Oh, finally there are guests again," the giant asked with a simple and honest smile, wearing a Viking-style helmet. "Guests, do you have any wine?" "Of course," Ace replied with a smile. The giant in front of him should be Brokey the Red Ghost. This giant and another giant on the island, Aoki Tori, were both the leaders of the giant soldier pirates 100 years ago. For the honor of the warriors of Elbaf, they fought in this small garden for nearly 100 years, regardless of the outcome. One reason why Ace came to the small garden this time is for Pansy's heavenly cuisine, and the other reason is to subdue these two legendary giants. "Pans, bring our best wine." "Okay, haha." A thick voice came from the pirate ship behind the submarine, and then a giant who was about the same size as Brokey came out from the back of the cabin. It was the chef of volcanic cuisine, Pansfree, who had been staying on the pirate ship just now, and was blocked by the cabin. After walking out with more than a dozen barrels of good wine, he immediately met Brokey's eyes. Next moment, hometown. The Red Ghost Brokey's body trembled, and he shouted excitedly, "My hometown." Pans also jumped up from the pirate ship, jumping excitedly onto the land. Ace watched the two giants hug each other like this, shouting non-stop, even he couldn't help being dumbfounded. He didn't expect such a scene to appear. But if you think about it carefully, the hometown of this world giant is Elbaf, somewhere on the Great Route. So the two giants in front of them are really fellow villagers. Ahem. Ace had to cough twice, interrupting their greetings. "Should we invite us in first?" "Haha. It should be. Red Ghost Brokey finally realized, feeling very embarrassed about his faux pas. So he reached out and grabbed Ace and others onto his shoulders, and while walking into the depths of the forest, he tilted his head and said, "Let me introduce myself first. I am the most powerful warrior in Elbaf, the Red Ghost Brokey. Ha. Let's go. I will kill some dinosaurs and treat you to barbecue." These carefree giant warriors always seem so hospitable. "Brokey, you can kill a few dinosaurs, but today's lunch," Eston paused, and said with a smile, "Let's invite it. You can call Dongli, the green ghost, and come and taste it together. Try Panza's heavenly cuisine." Boom. Brokey's footsteps stopped suddenly. He frowned, and looked at Ace on his shoulder with vigilance. "How do you know Dongli? I didn't mention him just now. Who are you guys?" "Haha. Not only do I know your names, I also know that the two of you used to be the leaders of the giant soldiers pirates, and each of you carried a bounty of 100 million Bailey." Ace's mouth slanted. "But, is lunch important for these things?" Brokey was taken aback by Ace's words, and then suddenly burst into laughter, slapped his chest vigorously, and said, "I like you very much, boy. Of course, lunch is more important. Haha. What's your name?" "My name is Ace, and I'm the captain of Yandi Pirates." "Is the Yandi Pirates? Interesting. But let's prepare lunch now. Haha." After finishing speaking, Brokey led Ace and others to make a road in the forest, and arrived at a road in a short while. Next to a bone the size of a hill. Ace looked up at the huge bone, and couldn't help but sigh in admiration. This bone should be the large Neptune that Brokey slaughtered 100 years ago. The strength of Dongli and Brokey is considered one of the best among the giants. Boom. At this moment, the volcano in the center of the island suddenly erupted, attracting Brokey's attention. The eruption of the volcano was the signal for a duel between him and Dongli. Looks like lunch will have to wait for a while. You guys take a rest here first. I have to go to a duel with that guy Dongli first. This time I must kill him. Ha ha ha. Brokey smiled and moved Ace after the person put it down. He picked up his battle axe and shield and rushed towards the volcano. It's a duel of honor. Pans was thoughtful, and as a fighter of Elbaf, he understood the real reason for Dongli and Brokey's duel. There is no need for a specific reason for the 100-year battle. If there is no accident, this battle of honor will not really end until one of them dies in the duel. Let's go. Let's go and have a look too. Ace would not let go of the opportunity to contact these two giants, and with his legs hard, he chased in Brokey's direction first. And behind him, the gigantic Lily, together with his father, and the remaining members of Yandi pirates quickly followed. Boom. Boom. By the time Ace arrived, Dongli and Brokey had already exchanged hands. The two super-strength giants waved their weapons with all their strength. Deadly. If Ace hadn't known that they had been best friends for a long time, seeing this scene at the side at this moment, he would only think that they were enemies of life and death. After such a short time, the weapons in the hands of the two were blown away by the opponent's attack because of the fierce confrontation. Boom. Boom. Without weapons, the two giants didn't intend to stop fighting at the same time. At the same time, they raised their fists and blasted each other's heads. The fists rushed into the air, and there was even a huge roar. Whoosh. Suddenly, a small figure suddenly appeared between the fists of the two with all their strength. He raised his arms, palms outward, and was actually preparing to block the attacks of two giants at the same time. All stop. Ace spoke quietly. Boom. With a loud noise, two huge fists hit Ace's palm at the same time. Suddenly, a terrifying airwave swept out. Countless leaves in the forest were blown away, and the tall trees were blown rustling, as if being pulled backward by countless invisible hands. The trunks could not bear it faintly, bending backwards make an exaggerated arc. But between the two giants, Ace, who blocked the fists of the two giants at the same time, was as stable as a rock, motionless, and the muscles on his two arms were like granite, releasing the beauty of power. That's it. Ace let out a low cry, and pushed his palms outward at the same time. At this moment, Ace, who was only about 1.7 meters, actually pushed the two giants who were nearly 20 meters away and staggered backward at the same time. Swish. Ace floated down from the air, put his hands back into his pockets, and stood on the top of a tree. With the aftermath of the airwaves, the canopy kept shaking back and forth, but Ace's feet seemed to be rooted in the canopy, and his figure was extremely stable. Boy Ace. What are you doing? The red ghost Brokey's eyes turned into huge lanterns, and he spewed angry flames towards Ace. No matter how good his impression of Ace was at the beginning, his good impression of this little man has disappeared now. The sacred duel of their giant race must not be disturbed by an outsider. This is an insult to them. Hey! Both of you say you are the strongest fighter in Elbaf, but in my opinion, you are just two brainless idiots. Ace lifted his hat. In fact, this is really what he thinks in his heart. In Ace's view, the true sense of honor of a soldier should not be based on duels with his own people. Ah! Before Brokey could speak, Dongli on the other side yelled out. Human, you have only lived in this world for 20 years, and we have already fought on this island. It's been nearly 100 years. What qualifications do you have to evaluate our fighters of Elbaf? While speaking, Dongli and Brokey had already raised their weapons, and looked at Ace on the treetop with unkind expressions, as if they were about to attack at any time. Really? Ace raised his head, staring at the two giants with scorching eyes. Your sense of honor is based on killing each other. Even if my former subordinates and partners were killed by the world government in order to find you deception, you are also indifferent? What did you say? Dongli and Brokey looked at Ace. Casey and Oimo. I'm afraid you don't even remember it. These two former giant soldier pirate crew members. Ace sneered. It's a pity that the two of them are loyal. For you, they showed the world government close to 50 years' door. Brokey and Dongli's pupils shrunk. 100 years is too long. They have forgotten too many things. Even the reason for the duel has long been thrown out of their minds. But how could they forget the brothers who once lived and died? Kathy, Oimo, Dongli and Brokey had complicated expressions and muttered to themselves. Then, Ace will be deceived by the government, and in order to rescue the two imprisoned people, he voluntarily told the story of guarding the judicial island. These two boys didn't use their brains very well back then. Dong Li thrust his sword into the ground under his feet, and said to Brokey with some annoyance. The two of them didn't pass the village's test back then, so they brought out by the two of us. I don't have enough brains, so I can only be deceived by those cunning humans. Yes. Brokey also sat down, and said with self-reproach. The village test is still very important. Only those who pass the test can be qualified Elbaf fighters. However, Dongli, Brokey said, no matter what, I will rescue those two children. You wait here, and I will come back to fight you after I rescue them. Fart your mother. You told me to wait here. I'm the strongest fighter in Elbaf. Dong Li roared, I should be the one to save them, you wait here for my return. Base. Base. Both of them picked up their weapons again, and the atmosphere that had eased just now became tense again. You guys have this strength, you might as well focus on saving people. Ace's voice came over again leisurely. Your behavior now makes me feel that your wisdom is no different from that of Casey and Oimo. Huh. What Dongli and Brokey can't bear the most is someone insulting their IQ. Bastard, we are warriors who have passed the village test. Every giant who has passed the test is a real strong man with both wisdom and courage. The test of the village. Ace flew down, landed on the ground, and said with a slanted corner of his mouth, I want to see what kind of test it is, so that you have such inexplicable confidence in your IQ. Well. Dong Li looked down at Ace at his feet, smiled angrily, and said. It seems that we can't let you, an ant-like human being, despair. Even giants like us with a long lifespan will have to spend a full 100 years to pass this test. With your short lifespan, it is simply impossible to solve this supreme riddle. On the other side, the Yandi pirates, who had been watching, became curious when they heard this. Robin stood on Lily's shoulders and asked curiously, you giants still have such a difficult test? Yes. Lily looked a little embarrassed. I haven't passed yet. It took even my father 100 years to get the recognition of the village and the title of Elbaf warrior. So any warrior who passes the test is the pride of our Elbaf. You must have great perseverance to get the final answer. Lily looked at Dongli and Brokey with eyes full of admiration. Come on. Stop talking nonsense. Let me see what you call the supreme puzzle. Ace stood between the two giants, with a huge gap in stature, but at this moment the aura released by Ace was suppressed these two, 20-meter giants. Dongli and Brokey's expressions changed, and they said with a cold snort. Then you can listen. The name of our village comes from the great god of war Albaf. Dong Li said proudly. Back then, the god of war spent 100 years in the depths of the sea, creating Albaf with a sacred ceremony. Buff, the island of giants. In order to create the island of giants, god of war moved one stone from afar on the first day, 2 stones on the second day, 3 stones on the third day, and 1 more stone every day, a total of 550 days. Brokey said frantically. The power of the god of war is limitless. Let me ask you now, how many stones is the island of giants in Elbaf? Without 100 years of unremitting efforts, let me ask you, how did you count this answer? The two giants looked down at Ace, as if they had crushed him in terms of IQ. But at this moment, Ace's expression is extremely exciting. Could it be that this so-called ultimate puzzle is the legendary one? Primary School Mathematical Olympiad. Ace was speechless to the extreme. Such a primary school Olympiad question. Those giants really counted for 100 years like this? Ace glanced at the two serious giants in front of him, and began to admire them a little. 100 years. They actually counted the results. Not to mention IQ, this terrible perseverance is really invincible in the world. I admire you. Ace bowed his hands to the two sincerely, but his eyes were full of sympathy. These giants are really silly and cute. Gahahaha. Realize the gap between yourself and us. Brokey laughed, making the whole forest tremble. Obviously seeing Ace deflated, he felt very comfortable. But right now, 790. Ace's voice was unusually calm. Brokey's laughter stopped abruptly, and his eyes almost popped out. You say it again. Dong Li on the side stuttered and asked. The number Ace reported made him feel very familiar, but he was so shocked that he was speechless at the moment. A total of 790 stones. Ace's expression was extremely confident. I don't know the answer, is it right or not? With some trembling, Brokey took off the helmet on his head, took out a piece of yellowed paper from the bottom of the helmet, stared at the numbers on it, counted, and finally reported a number with a complicated face. 66,000, 796,000, 2005. Gudong. Brokey swallowed, and said, exactly the same. Pansy, who was not far away, was also speechless in shock. In order to get this number, he had to go through 100 years of hard work. But now Master Ace counted them out within 1 minute. Master Ace is the god of war himself. Robin's eyes narrowed slightly. With her wisdom, of course, she would not believe that Ace counted the results directly in this moment. But even she didn't understand exactly what method Ace used. At the moment, the corner of Ace's mouth is slightly raised, and he is in a good mood. Of course he didn't count them. The way of thinking in primary school mathematical Olympiad, coupled with the fact that in this world, Ace's strengthened soul provides him with powerful computing power, Ace can easily solve this ultimate puzzle of Elbaf. Mr. Ace. At this moment, Dongli and Brokey saluted Ace respectfully, their eyes already filled with admiration. The warriors of Elbaf worship the strong. As soon as Ace came out, he blocked the fists of the two at the same time, which has proved that he has strong strength. If this is the only point, as Elbaf's fighters, the Brokeys will have the desire to fight against them, but when Ace solves the puzzle at a terrifying speed and completely crushes them in terms of IQ, they've put Ace in an unrivaled position. Actually, you don't have to do this. You told me the answer yourself. Ace smiled and told the two of them the solution to this problem. Even though he wanted to subdue these two giants, he didn't bother to use this half-deceived method. After all, he didn't really count the answers. But after he told the two giants the method, he saw that the eyes of the giants present were getting bigger and bigger, and their expressions became more and more excited. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, Dongli and Brokey, including Lily and Pansy, who had been watching on the sidelines, all rushed in front of Ace. Boom. With a roar, 4 huge giants knelt down on one knee in front of Ace. I have seen Lord God of War. Ace looked confused, full of question marks. What is the story unfolding? Did they not understand what he said? It's what I said. Didn't you understand? Ace frowned. I came up with this answer, but it was a coincidence. No, no, no. We all understand. Brokey said frantically. This is a solution that can only be thought up by a god. How can we mortals have the same idea as the god of war? There was a revelation of the god of war in the sacrificial hall in our village. If anyone can do something like yours, then he is the reincarnation of the god of war, Dong Li said piously. Are you so superstitious? Also, if you solve an elementary school Olympiad problem, you will become a god. It is too easy. Ace was a little puzzled, how these innocent giants have survived until now. However, he wasn't the kind of person who didn't know how to adapt at all. Since he had already explained it, but the giants in front of him couldn't understand it at all, he didn't want to waste his time talking. God of War is God of War. This is really learning mathematics, physics and chemistry well, and you are not afraid to travel all over the world. What the hell? I've come to the world of One Piece. I solved an elementary school mathematical Olympiad problem, and I can also accept a bunch of giant boys. Okay, get up first. Ace said to the 4 huge giants in front of him, let's have lunch first. I've wanted to try Pan's heavenly dish for a long time. Yes. Pan's was full of respect. Originally, he just wanted to repay Ace for saving his life, but now he is completely devoted to Ace. Taking out the huge iron pot from behind, Pan's immediately turned around to prepare cooking ingredients. Okay. Ace suddenly remembered something, and frowned slightly, because he suddenly discovered that Luffy hadn't come yet. This is too abnormal. Luffy has never been late for something like this involving eating. Ace's powerful knowledge, domineering sweeps towards the entire island. The small garden is not big, so Ace can sweep a quarter of the entire island at a time. But after a while, Ace's face gradually darkened, because there was no sign of Luffy on the entire island. Dare to move, Luffy? Are you looking for death? Da da da. Violet dropped her hand suddenly, and staggered back a few steps, her face covered in cold sweat. It's so scary. Giants actually kneel down to him. Violet has been watching Ace and the others from a distance with the ability to stare at the fruit, so the scene just now fell into her eyes. The scene of 4 giants kneeling on one knee at the same time was so shocking that she couldn't breathe for a while. However, the next moment her heart became excited instead. The stronger Ace is, the more beneficial it is to her plan, and the more likely it is to destroy the entire Don Quixote family. There was a flash of light in her eyes, and Violet turned to the maid beside her and asked. Baby 5, have you caught that kid named Luffy? Baby 5's expression was a bit weird. She pointed to the cabin and said. He's there, but I didn't catch him. To be precise, he came here by himself. Okay. Violet felt a little puzzled. What does this mean? But then she understood, and saw a round rubber ball bouncing and trying to get out of the cabin, but because its body was too round, it got stuck on the doorframe of the cabin. He Who is he? Violet looked confused. Why didn't she remember that there was such a fat man on the boat? He's Luffy. Baby 5 touched his forehead, and said helplessly, I just said something, treat him to dinner, and he followed me. But I didn't expect him to be so good at eating, all the lunch prepared today is gone. Seeing the shrugged Baby 5, the corners of Violet's mouth twitched. She had seen Luffy in a normal state. It was just an ordinary 8-year-old child, but what the hell is this rubber ball in front of her? Puff. After a lot of effort, Luffy finally squeezed out of the doorframe. Sister. Thank you for your hospitality. I have to go back to have lunch. Ace said today's lunch is heavenly food. Luffy's eyes lit up, as if his saliva was about to flow out. Huh? The eyes of Violet and Baby 5 suddenly widened. Still going to lunch? Then tell me, what the hell did you just eat? Morning tea. Violet has never heard of anyone who can eat morning tea, let alone anyone who can eat it into a ball at once. Didn't you just eat? Violet's tone was a bit complicated. Huh? Luffy tilted his head and asked strangely, isn't that morning tea? And I just ate, 100% full. Is it really morning tea? God is 100% full. You've already turned into a ball. Okay. Goodbye, sister, I'm leaving. Luffy said while moving towards the side of the ship. No. You can't go. Violet is in a hurry. If Luffy leaves, how can she cause greater conflict between Ace and the Don Quixote family? Even in her consciousness, as long as she can get revenge, it doesn't matter if she dies. I'm going to eat. Luffy muttered, ignoring Violet. He had already stretched his arms, and was about to catapult directly back to the small garden. Violet gritted her teeth and shouted, Baby 5, stop him quickly. After the roar fell, she found that Baby 5 didn't move, but stared straight behind her with a look of horror on his face. And Luffy also stopped his movements, and looked behind Violet with surprise. Who? Are you going to stop? There was a hint of killing intent in Senhan's voice, which immediately made Violet shiver, but the fear in her heart made her dare not move at all. She had already guessed who the speaker was, but she still couldn't believe it. After all, it was so far away from the small garden, how could it be possible to arrive in such a short time? Ace. Why are you here? Luffy shouted in surprise. Thump. Violet's legs gave way and she fell to the ground. It was really Ace's powerful strength that brought her too much pressure, so Ace just stood behind her, and the looming aura took away all her strength. Boom. A muffled sound. Ace suddenly appeared behind Luffy and punched him directly in the head. Didn't I tell you to play around and go directly to the volcano in the center of the small garden? It hurts, it hurts. Luffy covered his head, with 2 tears hanging from the corners of his eyes. But, my sister said they want to invite me to dinner. Ace helplessly sighed. Luffy's foodie nature is too strong, even he can't change it in the slightest. But then, with murderous intent in his eyes, Ace swept over Violet and Baby 5, and flames began to jump in his eyes. They're not here to treat you to dinner, my brother. If you want to touch his relatives, you must be prepared to be killed. Swept by Ace's eyes, the bodies of the two became more rigid, and they had a feeling that their life and death were completely in Ace's hands. But at this time, Violet seemed to not care about her own life at all, and struggled and shouted. We are the cadres of the Don Quixote family. The task we received is to kill your brother Luffy. Haha, if you have the ability, kill me. Even in death, she will cause greater conflict between Ace and the Don Quixote family. Violet, you. Baby 5 looked at Violet next to her with a face full of fear. She didn't understand what happened to Violet, who was always calm at this time. This is simply courting death. Huh? Sister, are you going to kill me? Luffy rubbed the bump on his head suspiciously, and said, but I don't feel the killing intent on you at all. The corner of Ace's mouth raised slightly, and he rubbed Luffy's head. Luffy's knowledgeable, domineering talent is really good, and now there are signs of awakening. The method of provoking is really bad. Violet. Ace looked down at Violet condescendingly. Do you think, if you really have the intention to kill Luffy, I will let you live until now? The Princess of Rathrosa. Violet. Violet's eyes widened suddenly, and at that moment, countless Ace's reactions flashed through her mind. Directly beheaded her, leaving without looking back. But she never imagined that Ace could tell her true identity in one go. Tell me, Your Royal Highness, why are you here? Eston paused, and added, I want to tell the truth. At this moment, Ace has already left an inscrutable impression in Violet's mind, as if she couldn't hide any secrets in front of Ace. So she can only honestly tell all the things that she wants to use Ace to destroy the entire Don Quixote family. In addition, he also told Ace that all the combat cadres of the family, and even Doflamingo himself, had all rushed here. Ace raised his eyebrows. The Don Quixote family really didn't get along with him, and they came to make trouble for him time and time again. However, they still want to get the ancient weapon Pluto. Violet continued. So, now that I have fallen into your hands, I don't know whether they will come to you first, or go directly to the underworld island. Okay. Ace's pupils shrank suddenly, and Violet actually said the words, Wangchen Island. I can read lips. Violet shrank her neck. Starting at the fruit, Ace narrowed his eyes slightly, and said the name of Violet's fruit. The fruit abilities in this world are so strange that it would be a big loss if they were not careful. They even leaked the location of the ancient weapon Pluto unknowingly. It seems that the time to go to Wangchen Island has to be brought forward. However, no matter how urgent you are, you have to wait until after the meal. Let's go. Luffy, go back to eat. Ace said calmly. Since Violet and the others never wanted to kill Luffy, he didn't plan to deal with Violet and the others anymore. Yeah. Luffy agreed, and then he squatted slightly, his little face flushed, and then he said in a low voice, digest. Puff. Luffy, who was originally a rubber ball, instantly shrunk a few times, and regained his normal size. This unscientific. Violet stared wide-eyed. Is this the digestion ability that normal humans can have? I can eat a little bit. Luffy smirked, scratching his head a little embarrassedly. Sister, why don't you come and eat with us? That's heavenly food. You don't just have a little bit to eat, okay. Violet first groaned in her heart, and then wanted to directly reject Luffy's invitation, but just as the word, no, was on her lips, she felt Ace's cold gaze cast on her. The meaning in the eyes is obvious. I've let you go, but don't be ignorant, or I don't mind swinging a few more knives casually. Cold sweat oozes from Violet's forehead. She probably already understands that Ace dotes on his younger brother very much, so she only nodded in agreement with Luffy's invitation. Forced to force a smile, Violet said, Okay, sister will go with you. As soon as she finished speaking, Violet felt the chill covering her body dissipate in an instant, touched the cold sweat on her head, and secretly thought that she had guessed right. Haha, let's go. Luffy smiled happily. But Baby 5 doesn't need to invite too much, because as long as someone needs her, she will be excited to follow. So, a group of 4 boarded the small garden, walked into the forest, and walked towards the volcano in the center of the island. They hadn't gone far, and they were still nearly 1,000 meters away from the volcano, when the aroma of food wafted over. Luffy's nostrils were enlarged, and his eyes were shining, breathing the surrounding air continuously. And Violet and Baby 5 also completely forgot the fact that they were forced to come here, and at this moment, they both felt that their bodies were moving towards the volcano uncontrollably. Gudong. The sound of swallowing saliva sounded almost at the same time, and even Ace's throat rolled. Da da da. The footsteps of the few people involuntarily accelerated, and the distance of 1,000 meters disappeared behind them almost instantly. What made them a little puzzled was that all the animals in the forest had disappeared along the way. With this kind of doubt, several people stepped out of the forest, and the scenery in front of them suddenly became clear. The volcano was already close in front of them, but Ace and the others found that if they wanted to get close, they had nowhere to go. Pans held up his cauldron and directly placed the cauldron on the crater. Various ingredients kept flying in his hands, and they were added to the cauldron one pile after another. The aroma of the food formed of the looming airwaves drifted away in all directions. Next to the volcano, the other 3 giants sat cross-legged, with a few strands of saliva hanging from the corners of their mouths, each holding a large bowl in their hands, staring longingly at the cauldron in Pans's hand. And looking at the outer circle, Ace and the others finally knew why there were no animals in the forest, and they all stayed here, surrounded by 3 floors inside and 3 floors outside, and I don't know how many circles. Heavenly cuisine lives up to its reputation. Yo ho ho, Captain, come in. Standing on Dongley's shoulder, Brook shouted to Ace. Master Pans's cooking is so strong, the taste makes my tongue fall out although I don't have a tongue, yo ho 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 ho. Haha, here we come. Ace couldn't bear it anymore, so when he mentioned Luffy, he flew into the air, past the animals, and landed directly on Dongley's shoulder. He didn't care about Violet and BABY5. It stands to reason that this is a good chance to escape, but the 2 girls glanced at each other, felt the fragrance surrounding them, sniffed, and decisively gave up the chance of escape. Taking a step forward, he squeezed hard towards the side of the volcano. Wow. Half a quarter of an hour later, Pansy shook his arm and shook the iron pot. The food drew an arc in the air, and the crystal grains of rice reflected light in the sun. Then it fell into the bowls of everyone present so precisely, and even the surrounding animals each got a small portion. Dinner. Shoo. There was no need for Panzijua to say that at this moment, no matter whether it was a human or an animal, they all buried their heads in the food in front of them. It's so delicious. Brokey was crying while eating. For the past 100 years, he has lived on barbecue, so how could he have the opportunity to eat such delicious food? Brocky, I'm so happy. Dong Li put one hand on Brokey's body, with a smile on his face. Is this heaven? Violet, who was mixed among the animals, seemed to have returned to her carefree childhood at this moment, living with her beloved father and beautiful sister, and she couldn't help but shed a few tears from the corners of her eyes. Ha ha ha. Seeing that his cooking was well received by everyone, Pans felt even better, so he immediately put the iron pot on the crater again. One more bowl. After eating the food in the bowl, everyone urged with one voice. Above the sea, a submarine is slowly sailing in the direction of the Twin Straits. Standing on the deck, Ace couldn't help but smack his mouth. Pansy's heavenly cuisine really left people wanting more, but unfortunately, this kind of cuisine can only be made in the presence of volcanoes. Moreover, the father and daughter of Pans and Lily also asked Ace to go to Judicial Island to help Brokey and Dongli rescue the giants Casey and Oimo. Of course, Ace would not stop them, but just told them to go directly to the capital of Seven Waters to find Bingshan from Carrera Company after they rescued the two giants, so as to help Bingshan speed up the development of the shipbuilding company. When Ace finishes his work here, he will go directly to them. Okay. At this moment, Ace suddenly frowned, looked to the sea in front of him, and saw the wreckage of a small sailboat floating there. On one of the wreckages, there are signs of mangroves and bubbles. A ship from the Chambord Islands. This red tree is unique in the world of One Piece, so Ace recognized it at a glance, sighed, and said to himself, the ship is destroyed like this, the people on board should be in bad luck. This is a great route with infinite dangers. After the ship sank in the sea, facing the unpredictable weather, ordinary people would definitely die. The submarine passed through the wreckage, and Ace just sighed, then turned and walked into the cabin. He was about to reach the Twin Straits, and he had to tell Brook about Rab. However, shortly after his submarine left, a figure suddenly emerged from the depths of the seabed. He had black and white shawl-length hair, a pair of round glasses, and a scar on his right eye. He patted the package in his hand and said to himself, I'm really unlucky, the boat capsized again. But luckily I got Bailey back in the package. I don't know how that old guy Kulokas is doing. This time I went to see him secretly, and I don't know if he will be surprised to see my old friend, Rayleigh. Ha ha ha. Ace walked into the cabin of the submarine and entered Brook's room, and saw that Brook was still trying to find a way to get out of his body, but for these days, Brook had always felt that there was a shackle preventing him from breaking through. Brook, the Twin Straits are coming soon. Ace didn't say much, he knew that Brook must understand what he meant. Sure enough, Brook stood up, with a skeleton face full of complicated emotions. He knew that Ace was telling him that after more than 40 years, the time to reunite with Rab was finally approaching. Expectation, fear, even with a hint of fear, this is what Brook thinks in his heart. Although he kept joking about his skeleton appearance, how could it be possible that he didn't feel any discomfort and inferiority complex in his heart? With this appearance, can Rob still recognize him? It must be difficult. Brook subconsciously scratched his afro, could it be because of this strange hairstyle? Let's go, it's almost here. Ace walked out of the cabin first, and he didn't comfort Brook, because Brook could only pass this level by himself. Brook's expression was tangled, and after struggling for a while, the longing for Rab finally prevailed. He gritted his teeth, and followed Ace out. On the deck, the Gemini Strait is already in sight, but the most spectacular thing is behind the strait, a red land that towers into the sky and stretches all the way to the end of the line of sight, as if dividing the entire sea into two. It is the Red Earth continent. On the red soil continent in front of Ace and others, a top-down turbulent ocean current, straight into the clouds at the end, is a magical landform connected by the Great Sea Route in the Four Seas, reversing mountain. But this spectacular scene could not attract Brook's attention at all. Boo! There was a powerful roar of a whale, which lasted for several miles, and surrounded the ears of Ace and others. Looking in the direction where the sound came from, a huge island whale with a body length of several hundred meters came into view. With a smile on the corner of Brook's mouth, tears welled up all at once. Rab. Have you grown to this size? Boo! There was another whale roar, and Rab, who had been blocking the upside-down mountain, seemed to feel something suddenly. The huge body turned around and looked at the submarine of Ace and others. At this moment, Brooke and Rob, who were completely out of proportion, looked at each other. There is no need to have any worries anymore. Brooke already understands that all his previous worries are superfluous. Even if his afro hairstyle has disappeared, it is impossible for Rob to forget him. Taking out the sound shell in the skull, Brooke silently pressed the play button, and the familiar singing voice reverberated in this sea area again, and Brooke sang the song of Binks' wine again with tears. Yo ho 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 yo ho, ho ho, bring Binks' wine to you. Like the sea breeze, ride the wind and waves at will. On the other side of the sea the sunset is also noisy. Boo. There were tears in Rab's clear eyes. It knew they would come back. Wow. Rob sank into the sea in a sudden, propping up the submarine with his scarred head. Rab. Brooke jumped off the deck and tremblingly stroked Rab's scars. This man who could endure decades of loneliness cried out loudly like a child at this moment. Sorry. I'm late, boo. Ow, in his voice, just the joy of reunion. Brooke didn't realize that the shackles that had been restricting his soul had been completely broken at this moment. After today, his use of his soul would rise to a new level. Let's go. Let the two of them be alone for a while. Ace has been watching on the deck of the submarine. After traveling to the world of One Piece, he puts almost all his energy on improving his own strength, but at this moment, being able to help Brooke and Rab reunite makes him feel heartfelt joy. This kind of joy is the sense of accomplishment that comes from helping others, and it even makes Ace feel more satisfied than gaining strength. With a smile, Ace jumped off Rab's body first, and jumped in the direction of the lighthouse in Twin Straits. And Willie behind him directly raised the submarine with his bare hands, and also jumped towards the sea surface, allowing Brooke and Rob to express their missing for 40 years alone. Captain Ace. As soon as Ace landed, Luo took the white bear Babo and the 3 crew members forward and saluted. You did a great job. Rab looks in good spirits, Ace boasted with a smile. Rob has been hitting the red clay continent with his head for many years, and suffered numerous external and internal injuries. He should be relatively weak, but he seems to be in good condition now, which should be due to Luo. I just did what I should do, Luo said with some embarrassment. Moreover, it is mainly due to Mr. Kulokas, whose medical skills are much better than mine. Oh. Did you take Kulokas as your teacher? Ace was a little surprised. Kulokas is the ship doctor of Roger's pirates. He can prolong Roger's life by 1 year. It can be said that his medical skills are already the king of pirates. The top level in the world. Haha. Luo is now my precious apprentice. Before Luo could answer, an old man in a floral shirt came over. It was Kulokas. He looked at Luo with satisfaction in his eyes, and said, but I will soon have nothing to teach. Haha. Luo is the most talented child I have ever seen. He is simply a natural doctor. Luo was a little embarrassed by the praise, and pulled down his plush hat. Of course, Luo is the ship doctor of our Emperor Yan pirates. Ace was also very happy to hear others praise his partner, and said with a smile, since Luo has already worshipped you as a teacher, the apprentice ceremony is indispensable. As he said that, Ace turned his right hand, and a blue pill exuding a strong aura appeared in his palm. This is Kingming Shodan, which can increase your lifespan by 10 years. That is to say, it can make you 10 years younger. Ace handed it to Kurokas. This is Luo's apprentice ceremony, and it is also to thank you, prolonging the life of my father Roger, so please be sure to accept it. The elixir was handed to Kurokas, and he inhaled a few wisps of spiritual energy into his body, which immediately made him feel lighter, as if his vitality had increased instantly. Just a few wisps of aura can have such a great effect. If he really swallowed the whole elixir, what effect will it have? Kulokas doesn't need to think about it at all. So he subconsciously believed Ace's words. He stared fierily at Ace's palm. As a doctor, he understood that the great value of this elixir would definitely drive the whole world into madness. Those strong men of the older generation whose bodies are starting to weaken because they are no longer young will definitely give everything for this elixir. But Kulokas glanced at Rab and Brooke in the distance, took a deep breath, and finally suppressed the desire in his heart, saying, I can't. Without you, I don't know how long Rob will wait with despair. Kulokas also had a sigh on his face. It's been more than 40 years, and even I don't know if I can survive. It's you who brought hope to Rab, so I can't ask for your things. Ace raised his eyebrows, but still didn't take back his right hand, and said, no thanks. Brooke is also my crew member, so I should help him. You take this elixir first. Even if you don't need it yourself, I think your old buddies should also need it. Kulokas was taken aback for a moment, and Ace's words reached his heart. Some of his old buddies in the Roger Pirates were suffering from old injuries. Even though Kulokas had strong medical skills, he couldn't heal a dying body. But if they have this elixir, they can rejuvenate their bodies, and the difficulty of treatment will be greatly reduced. His eyes kept flickering, and Kurokas struggled for a while, but finally he took the pill in Ace's hand with his teeth. He doesn't think about himself, he has to think about those old guys. Ha ha. Ace was very happy. If these pills have been hidden and not used, they are just some dead things. But now that it is used up, in exchange for the favors of the old crew members of the Roger Pirates, it will definitely be a bloody profit. Not to mention, Luo on the other side was even more moved when he saw that Ace gave such precious things without hesitation for him. Uncle Kulokas, we still have to go to the East China Sea to pick up a few things, so we'll be leaving later. Ace said with a smile on his face. I'll take Luo away first, Brooke. Let him stay here with Labrador for a while. Huh? You are going to the East China Sea, are you going to take the windlass belt? Kulokas asked. Yeah. Ace was a little surprised, not knowing why Kulokas would ask this question. Then you are really lucky, Kulokas said with a smile. Wait another hour, and the annual countercurrent will occur on the upside-down mountain. Ace was surprised. Is there such a thing? As if seeing the question in Ace's heart, Kulokas explained. Usually, the upside-down mountain separates the Great Route from the Four Seas, and all pirates can only enter the Great Route from the Four Seas along the current. Entering the Great Route is equivalent to completely cutting off their back road. They can only move forward all the way. If they are not going forward, they will die. But there is no unparalleled road, and God still leaves a glimmer of life for those losers of the Great Route, that is, the upside-down mountain reverse current only once a year. Only on this day, they have the opportunity to return to their hometown. When Ace heard this, he showed a suddenly realized expression. No wonder Sanji's master Redfoot Zip and Creek of the pirate fleet were able to return to the East China Sea from the Great Route. After all, with their strength, they can't survive the windlass belt. Ace nodded, and decided to let Luo and the others prepare first, waiting for the reverse flow of the reversed mountain. An hour passed quickly, and besides Brooke, Ace had already brought all the crew members to stand on the deck of the submarine. In front of the submarine, the sea current was originally falling from the sky like a waterfall, but at this moment it suddenly stagnated, and then rose into the sky in an instant, flowing backwards to the top of the inverted mountain. Set off. The corner of Ace's mouth slanted, and he gave the captain's order. Wow. Riding the turbulent current, the submarine rushed all the way to the top of the reverse mountain, and finally turned to the left front, and fell into the East China Sea without any danger. Twin Straits. Playing with the Kingming Shodan in his hand, Kurokas stood on the coast, watched Ace and the others leave by boat, and muttered to himself, Captain Roger, I didn't expect your son to be so old. It's gone. Whose son? Suddenly, a voice came from behind Kurokas, which made him tremble in fright. Who? Scary people, scary to death. Do not you know? Kurokas turned his head to look behind with a dark face, and suddenly saw a figure emerge from the sea, jumped onto the shore, squeezed the seawater in his shirt, and looked at Kurokas with some curiosity. Rayleigh. Kurokas called out the name of the person in surprise. Haha, old man, I didn't expect that. Seeing Kurokas's expression, Raleigh was a little proud. Wait. Kurokas passed Rayleigh and looked at the sea behind Rayleigh. The original expression of surprise disappeared, and his face suddenly sank. I said, you didn't come swimming again, did you? Ahem. Rayleigh coughed in embarrassment, and his voice became softer. How can it be? It's just that my boat sank accidentally. Nonsense. Kurokas scolded. Don't you know your own physical condition? Although I have tried my best to deal with your previous injuries, it can only make you live an extra 11 or 12 years. You are so foolish, I can't guarantee that you will still see the birth of the next new era. Ha. Ha ha. Rayleigh laughed. He didn't seem to care much about his body, but changed the subject and asked, whose son did you just say? When this topic was mentioned, Kurokas was indeed distracted, and his expression became brighter. It's the captain, the son of Captain Roger. Rayleigh's eyes widened suddenly, shocked by the news, and seemed to want to make sure again. You said, the captain has a queen? Yes. Portgas de Ace. Kurokas looked a little proud. 12 years old, the bounty is already 600 million berries. It's him. Raleigh was stunned. It's not like he didn't read the newspaper. Of course he knew Ace's name, and he thought of Ace's surname, and thought of the girl Lu Ju who resolutely walked with Roger. He can finally be sure that this is their captain's son. Where is he? Let me meet. With a hint of excitement, Raleigh looked around, wanting to see where Ace was. Don't look for it. Kuroka's rolled his eyes and said, he had already turned over the reverse mountain to the East China Sea 1 second before you came, and said he had something to do. Swish. Raleigh turned around and was about to jump back into the sea again, looking impatient. Wait. Are you a fool? Kuroka's grabbed Raleigh by the collar and asked angrily, do you know where Ace and the others are going? You just jumped into the sea? Also, do you take my words as a deaf ear and still dare to swim like this? Do you think you have lived too long? Lei Li was taken aback for a moment, and then he realized that he turned around and asked, then quickly tell me where he went. I have to go and see. I don't know. Kuroka's replied angrily. I know and I won't tell you. Do you think you were still the Pluto back then? Although I dropped a level, I still have the general level. Lei Li urged angrily, tell me quickly. Yo-ho-ho-ho, I seem to know where the captain is going. At this time, Brook jumped off Rab's head, holding a white life card in his hand. Yo, you look like a very interesting person. Raleigh showed interest when he saw Brook who had become a skeleton. Instead, Kuroka's was taken aback. Brook had been staying away from the coast with Rob just now, so he didn't see Brook's appearance clearly. Seeing a skeleton suddenly at this moment, Kuroka's couldn't help but yelled out, Ghost, Ghost. I'm Brook. With black lines all over his head, Brook tore off half of the life card, handed it to Lei Li, and turned away. Kuroka's face froze. So embarrassing, ha ha ha, interesting. Lei Li smiled happily, and at the same time waved his hand towards Kuroka's, saying goodbye as he walked, I'm going. Seeing that Raleigh couldn't be stopped from looking for Ace, Kuroka's said with a dark face, stop swimming. There's a small sailboat under the lighthouse, so go away. Also, take this with you. While speaking, Kuroka's handed the Kingming Shodan to Lei Li. Raleigh took a breath of spiritual energy, felt a burst of refreshment in his body, and asked in surprise. What is this? This is left to us by Ace. At this time, Kuroka's has regarded Ace as his own nephew, so he is very proud of Ace's generosity. If you eat it, you can increase your lifespan by 10 years. So powerful. Lei Li's eyes widened, but he didn't take the pill, then keep it for yourself. I told you to take it away, so hurry up, Kuroka's said impatiently. I still have it, and my body doesn't have so many hidden injuries. Kuroka's lied. In his opinion, Raleigh needs the elixir more than he does. Seeing that Kuroka's insisted, Lei Li still took it, although he was still a little puzzled. Okay, then I'll take it. If Raleigh was 10 years younger, he should be able to regain his peak, and maybe catch up with the next wave of the times. Stuffing the elixir into his bosom, Lei Li boarded the small sailboat, turned over the reversing mountain and headed directly to the East China Sea, followed the direction of the life card, and chased Ace and the others. The submarine of Ace and others was very fast, and after coming down from the inverted mountain, it sailed directly in the direction of Wangchen Island. According to the records in the historical text, it takes about 3 days to reach Wangchen Island from Reverse Mountain. After 2 days of sailing, on the second night, Ace already felt something was wrong. The weather in the Four Seas is not as unpredictable as the Great Route, and the Navy has a strong control over the sea, so it stands to reason that in a 2-day voyage, at least 1 or 2 merchant ships or passenger ships can be encountered. But Ace hasn't even seen half of the boats along the way. Standing at the bow of the boat, Ace fell into thinking. If something goes wrong, there must be a demon, and the location of Wangchen Island has been exposed, so Ace has to guard against it. But at this moment, a medium-sized merchant ship slowly approached at the front left of the submarine. Ace frowned. Could it be that he was thinking too much? Willie, turn the bow and look beside that merchant ship. Ace ordered, and the submarine adjusted its direction and headed towards the medium-sized merchant ship. Captain, fortunately we lowered the pirate flag long ago. Otherwise we would scare people away, haha. Luo stood beside Ace and made a joke. But Luo was a little surprised to find that Ace, who had always been with them, did not answer his words this time. His eyes were fixed on the merchant ship opposite, and his expression had become extremely serious. Turning his head and looking forward again, the submarine was already approaching the medium-sized merchant ship. At this moment, Luo also felt something was wrong. This merchant ship actually seemed to be floating on the sea alone without anyone controlling it. Go up and see. Ace jumped up with Luo and Willie and boarded the merchant ship in front of him. As soon as his feet stepped on the deck of the merchant ship, a pungent stench hit his face. "Captain." Luo pointed to the center of the deck, his fingertips trembling slightly. Ace looked along his fingers, and his face became ugly. In the corner of the deck of the merchant ship, dozens of naked corpses were stacked together, forming a mountain of corpses, vaguely resembling the lotus throne of Buddha, and the pale arms stretched out like white lotus petals. Weird to the extreme. Among the corpses were men and women, old and young, obviously ordinary passengers on merchant ships. The dried blood formed a black lotus flower pattern on the deck, making one's hair stand on end. Even though Ace and the others had seen too many dead people, they couldn't help feeling sick at the moment. Especially Luo, his face was pale at this time, and the hand holding Ghost Cry was shaking constantly, obviously recalling the scene of hiding in the pile of corpses and escaping across the border a few years ago. Luo's fate is actually very tragic. He was born in a country called White Town by the world, Felevance. This country produces a superior raw material, lead. But the world government has concealed the truth about amber lead. Once it is mined out, it will poison people with lead ammonium disease. The inhabitants of the country of Felevance will live shorter and shorter with each generation due to the accumulation of trace toxins. The sick can only watch their skin and hair turn whiter and whiter, and die while suffering severe pain all over the body. When Luo was 10 years old, disaster broke out. Because the life expectancy of each generation of citizens is decreasing, so the old people, young people, and children of Felevance all get sick at the same time. The news that the polbone disease is not contagious was concealed by the world government, which caused Felevan's neighboring countries to block all of Felevan's exit routes for fear of being infected. The war broke out, and the massacre fell on Luo just like that. Overnight, all his relatives and friends around him fell into a pool of blood, and only he escaped by hiding in the pile of corpses. Therefore, the scene on the merchant ship in front of him undoubtedly opened the scar in Luo's heart again. Seeing Luo's reaction, Ace also sighed in his heart. The child's experience is really distressing. Patting Luo on the head, Ace smiled and said softly, "Don't worry, I will never let you experience that feeling again." When Luo heard Ace's words, he looked up into Ace's eyes, and the determination revealed in them was extremely firm, which suddenly made him feel extremely at ease. At this moment, he seemed to see Clausen standing in front of him again. Although Luo's face was still pale, he still nodded vigorously. "Then what about these corpses?" Seeing that Luo's mind gradually calmed down, Willie asked. "If they are left for a longer time, there will probably be a plague." "Hey." Ace sighed, raised his foot and walked towards the pile of corpses. All he can do for these poor people is a farewell cremation. But just when Ace walked to the pile of corpses, a gap suddenly opened in the pile of corpses, and a thin figure rushed out. Two cold lights swept across Ace's cheeks, clang, clang. Although this attack was extremely abrupt, Ace's fingers were instantly covered with blue-black armed domineering, and he threw forward twice like lightning, blocking the two cold lights. Click. Two broken knives fell in front of him, and the black shadow also stopped. Ace stretched his right hand forward and pinched the man's neck directly. His eyes flickered coldly. He thought he was not a bad person, so he would never be soft when dealing with enemies who hurt him. But this time, the chill on his face subsided quickly. After sighing, he gently placed the black shadow in his hand on the deck. Sombra is just a child. The child was only about 10 years old, with blonde hair, and was a little younger than Ace, but his eyes were full of despair at the moment, not fear, but the sadness of life without love. Tears kept flowing from the child's eyes, but his expression didn't change a bit. The bullet holes on his body were bleeding, and he only knew that he was punching Ace's body with punches, and he couldn't stop. Puff. Ace pointed at the child's neck, causing him to faint temporarily, and said to Luo behind him, "This child has been stimulated. You take him back to the boat first, and I will deal with the corpse here." Although Ace still doesn't know what happened on this merchant ship, it is obviously not something that can make people happy. Luo stepped forward to pick up the child, turned his head to look at Ace. He seemed to see himself in this child. "Captain. Stop talking." "I know." Ace raised his hand to stop Luo's words, and said, "No matter what happened, the child is innocent. So when the child wakes up, I will help him." Luo nodded gratefully, turned around and jumped back to the submarine with the child in his arms. After checking the entire merchant ship, Willie found no clues, so he also returned to the submarine. And Ace glanced at the rotting corpses in front of him, sighed, and when he turned to leave, he left behind a big fire to give these poor people a last bit of decency. Night. In the cabin, Luo was lying on the side of the bed, falling asleep. After he healed the injury on the child, he himself was a little sleepy. What? At this time, the child lying on the bed suddenly woke up and retreated to the corner of the bed, his face full of horror. Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. Luo immediately regained his spirits, comforting him with as gentle a tone as possible, and wanted to get closer. Don't come here. The blonde child yelled loudly, tears were about to flow again. This made Luo feel distressed for a while, and he felt all these pains deeply. Don't be afraid, I just want to help you heal your injuries. The child immediately touched his body, and when he found that the wounds had disappeared, he believed Luo's words, but he still stared at him warily. What's your name? Luo asked softly. Luo was actually only 14 years old, but he was unusually mature. The child hesitated for a while, perhaps because Luo really gave him a feeling of reassurance, so he finally said his name. Ian. Cherish words like gold, don't want to say more. What happened on the boat? Can you tell me? We may be able to help you. Luo followed the temptation, he really wanted to help Ian, just like Ace helped him. Seeing that Ian was still huddled in the corner and did not dare to say more, Luo immediately told his story. When Luo's story was finished, Ian burst into tears. After all, he was only a child. When he saw someone who had the same experience as himself, he immediately developed trust, and immediately stepped forward to hug Luo. Next, Ian choked up and told what happened on the boat. It turned out that Ian's parents opened a kendo gym on a small island in the East China Sea. A week ago, they were invited to serve as guards on this merchant ship. Originally, this was just an ordinary mission. After all, the distance traveled by the merchant ship is not too far, and the local pirates in the East China Sea are not too powerful, so Ian's parents even brought Ian with them, intending to let the children appreciate the beauty of the sea scenery. However, after going out to sea for a few days, they discovered to their horror that for some reason, the number of pirates in the East China Sea began to increase sharply, and there were even many big pirates returning to the East China Sea from the Great Route. Relying on his own experience, the captain of the merchant ship cautiously avoided many pirates, but 3 days ago, the merchant ship still encountered pirates unfortunately. A white bone lotus was drawn on the pirate flag fluttering on the opponent's ship. The vicious pirates brandished butcher knives one by one, rushed onto the merchant ship, and began to slaughter without asking a word. Ian's parents are skilled at swordsmanship and guard him firmly, but they can't stop the pirates who keep rushing up, not to mention that the other party has guns. Not long after, Ian's parents were shot dead and fell into a pool of blood, but even if they died, Ian would be firmly protected by him. In the chaotic scene, Ian was also shot and passed out. When he woke up, he was already under layers of corpses. At this moment, he heard a voice from outside the pile of corpses. His eyes turned red immediately. He picked up the 2 knives beside him and rushed out. Is that person okay? Ian's small face was a little nervous. After all, he had learned swordsmanship with his parents, and he was very sharp with a knife. At that time, his head was in a daze, and he might have hurt his savior. The captain is fine. Luo smiled and said, the captain is very strong, how could he be injured so easily? Ian's eyes lit up suddenly, and he said anxiously, then can he teach me? I want revenge. Luo could hear the urgency in Ian's voice, and thought that he was only thinking about revenge before. However, hatred can indeed make people progress sometimes, so Luo has no way to refute Ian in front of him. After all, even he himself has the belief of killing the Don Quixote family to get to where he is today. Sighing, Luo was about to answer when the door behind him opened with a click. Ace walked in with everyone from Yandy Pirates, his eyes narrowed slightly, staring at Ian with burning eyes, and asked, do you want to take revenge yourself? I want to. Ian's eyes glowed with longing. Okay. Then you have to know who your enemy is first. Ace said sharply, without looking back, Violet, tell me everything you know. It's the Bone Lotus Pirates. Violet's expression was a bit complicated. Their Captain Kodak's bounty is only 40 million Baileys. They are not strong, but their methods are extremely cruel and perverted. The people on board were slaughtered, and the corpses were piled up in the shape of white lotus. After a pause, Violet added, they are one of the pirate groups secretly developed by the Don Quixote family. Doflamingo. Hearing this name, Luo's eyes burst out with intense hatred. Violet seemed a little guilty. At the beginning, I only told them the approximate location of Wangchen Island, so it should be Doflamingo who mobilized all the forces under his command and scattered them in this sea area to search for Wangchen Island. Specific location. That's what killed the child's parents. At this time, Ace has released a strong killing intent. This Dio flaming brother really has no bottom line, and there are such scumbags under his command. I think it is time to have a final settlement with him. Willie, I think Ian is also using the double knife style, and he will follow you. After finishing speaking, Ace turned around and walked out. Take a good rest tonight, and tomorrow we will go and fight Doflamingo. Do the math. Yes. Everyone agreed in unison and dispersed separately. After Ace returned to his room, he sat cross-legged on the bed, and called up his attribute bar again. Attributes. Constitution, Lieutenant General, 10. Spiritual Fire Essence Body Ju. 5th Stage Body Energy, 174 3/10. Eliminate Magic Energy. 22 different fire. Falling Heart Flame, Qinglian Ground Fire, Volcanic Stone Flame. Glancing at it, Ace put the attribute bar back again. During these days, through fighting the ghost spider and exercising every day, he has gained 174 points of body-quenching energy again. It can be said that it will not take long for Ace's physical strength to truly advance to the level of a general. And by that time, Ace will also get his first intermediate fire. Of course, Ace has already decided on his own options. The best choice is of course the 7th ranked Juyu Jinzuhuo, because Ace already has the volcanic stone flame. If the two are combined, a new type of different fire can be formed, even if it is not as good as the 4th ranked high-level different fire Jindi. Fen Tianyan did not lose out against each other. In this way, Ace can have a high-level strange fire in advance. But Ace also has some concerns. After all, according to the system, the physical strength determines the level of strange fire he can withstand, so he doesn't know whether the physical strength of the quasi-general level can withstand the high-level strange fire. So he also listed the 6th ranked Bawang Destroyer Yan, who can transform into a pair of 100-foot-sized flame wings, as a candidate. There are also 3,000 flames that can create undead bodies, are also within his consideration. I'm really looking forward to it. Ace smiled and closed his eyes, waiting for the next day to come. The next morning, when Ace came to the deck, he was surprised to find that all the crew members were already exercising their bodies. Especially Luo and Ian, because of the impending revenge, they put in points of effort. To Ace's surprise, Ian's talent in swordsmanship can only be described as a genius. Relying on his foundation in his parents' dojo, he quickly absorbed the swordsmanship taught by Willie like a sponge. Ace was sure that it wouldn't be long before even Willie would be able to teach him. They were relieved to devote themselves to their exercise, and the day passed quickly, and the destination Wangchen Island appeared in front of their eyes. This is indeed a volcanic island. The whole body is made of pitch-black volcanic rocks, but at this time, beside Wangchen Island, there is already a pirate ship flying the Bone Lotus pirate flag docked on the coast. Have you already found this place? Ace raised his eyebrows, looked at the approaching island, patted Ian's blonde hair beside him, and asked, "Are you ready?" Ian replied loudly with anger in his eyes. With the enemy right in front of his eyes, Ian felt his chest was burning. "Let's go." Ace's calm voice sounded, and then several figures jumped up, jumping straight to the pirate ship in front of him. "Hey! Who are you?" As soon as Ace and the others landed on the pirate ship, they were surrounded by a group of pirates. Ace did not answer these people, but calmly said, "Luo, you protect Ian to find that bastard Kodak, and the rest all right, leave it to me and Willie." The rest of the people didn't board the ship. For Ace, if it wasn't for Ian's personal revenge and destroying the Bone Lotus pirate ship, he only needed one knife. "Yes, Captain." Luo protected Ian, turned around and rushed to the cabin together. Facing the crowd in front of him, Luo just raised his right hand and shouted, "Room change." As soon as the words fell, Luo and Ian suddenly disappeared on the deck, leaving only a circle of airwaves, making the group of pirates look at each other in disbelief. They all thought they were dazzled, but when they saw that there were still two people still surrounded by them, the pirates roared arrogantly again. "You country bumpkins in the East China Sea, don't you know how powerful our Bone Lotus pirates are? Our captain is Kodak with a bounty of 40 million. Don't you want to live? Stop talking nonsense with them. My lord is still conceiving a Bone Lotus work recently, kill them and pile them up." The pirates licked their lips, their eyes were scarlet, looking at the two of Ace, like looking at two lambs waiting to be slaughtered. "Okay, Willie, let's hurry up too." Ace really didn't want to see these scumbags anymore, and just finished speaking, he slammed into the crowd, and Willie also pulled out the two samurai swords from his waist, and pointed directly at the most yelling a few powerful pirates hacked over. Immediately, the bloodthirsty expressions of the pirates froze on their faces, and before they could react, screams rang out one after another. In the captain's room of the Bone Lotus pirates, A man who was only 1.4 meters tall, with a full face and a disgusting smile, touched a treasure box at hand, very satisfied. He is Kodak, the captain of the Bone Lotus Pirates. When I eat this devil fruit, I'll see who dares to say that I'm weak. Kodak patted the treasure box, trembling with excitement because of the future he imagined. Who said that he is just a pirate who only knows how to bully ordinary people? Sooner or later he will have enough strength to use the corpses of those strong people who look down on him to spell out corpse lotuses. And all of this depends on this fruit. Kodak took the treasure box in front of him, opened it, and inside was a dazzling orange fruit. The beautiful moire on it seemed to be dancing flames, showing its mysterious power to others. This time, more than a dozen pirate groups were searching for the Wangchen Island for the Don Quixote family. Only he, Kodak, was the first to find the location of this remote island, and also accidentally found this devil fruit on the island. In Kodak's view, people do not destroy themselves. Even if he is under the command of the Don Quixote family, he will not be so stupid as to hand over the fruit in front of him to the family. Luck is coming, no one can stop it. Kodak laughed and stretched out his hand to the devil fruit in the treasure box, but at this moment. What? A scream came from the deck, and he quickly covered the treasure box, hid it in the safe behind him, and closed it carefully. Kodak has always been cautious, but decided to eat this fruit when it is absolutely safe. Then, Kodak put on a fierce expression, and shouted at the door of the captain's cabin. What's going on? Pung. The door was knocked open, and a flustered pirate rushed in, stammering and reporting, "There. Someone attacked." A look of vigilance came to Kodak's face. If the opponent was too strong, he wouldn't mind leaving his subordinates and running away alone with the devil fruit. He was able to be safe for such a long time on the Great Route, not unrelated to his prudence, so he asked, "How many people are on the other side?" "4. 4. The pirate had fear on his face. "Fuck you." Kodak rushed forward, kicked the pirate out of the hatch, and shouted, "Just 4 FC King people, are you scaring me?" After finishing speaking, he pulled out the knife from his waist and wanted to rush out, leading his men to kill these reckless guys. At this moment, Kodak's eyes blurred, and 2 figures suddenly appeared at the door of the hatch. He stepped back quickly and looked over vigilantly. When he found out that there were only 2 children, Kodak felt relieved and licked his tongue, thinking whether to kill the 2 children, break off their limbs, and put them into the shape of a lotus flower. "Ian. I'll leave this bastard to you." Luo glanced at the short fat man in front of him, saw the bloodthirsty light in his eyes, and there was a hint of disgust in his eyes, but he knew that he couldn't do it. "Ian thing. Don't worry. No one will bother you." Luo patted Ian, turned and walked out of the room, closing the cabin door with a snap. There was another burst of shouts outside, but these shouts quickly turned into screams. Nodding gratefully, Ian aimed his eyes full of anger at the chunky Kodak in front of him. This bastard killed his parents. It was this scum who slaughtered all the people in the boat. Base. Ian felt that it was unnecessary to even talk to him, so he directly pulled out the double knives at his waist, held a sword in each hand, and charged forward. Kodak also felt something was wrong at this time. He was not deaf, and the screams outside did not stop at all. This meant that all the dead were his crew members, and the other 3 could defeat his pirate group? Thinking of this, Kodak didn't dare to be careless, and immediately stared at the blonde boy rushing towards him with all his attention, tightly holding the knife in his hand. Clang. Clang clang. Kodak defended Ian's attack cautiously, but soon realized that his caution was completely unnecessary. The blonde boy was completely dazzled by anger, and the attack was disorderly. Kodak licked his lips bloodthirstily, and the knife in his hand danced like a knife, blocking the 2 knives in Ian's hand. Under the power of Kodak, Ian's upper body was raised high. Swish. Kodak flicked his wrist, and the tip of the knife stabbed directly at Ian's head. In the nick of time, Ian fell on his back and rolled backwards twice, thus avoiding Kodak's stab. However, the sharp blade left a small cut on Ian's forehead, and traces of blood oozed from the wound. The faint pain on his forehead made Ian wake up in an instant. Although Kodak was able to get this bounty, the biggest reason was because he was cruel and bloodthirsty, and his strength was not strong. But no matter how weak Kodak is, he is still a pirate with a bounty of 40 million. If he attacks without any rules, he has absolutely no chance of winning. After Ian calmed down, the moves that Willie taught him today kept popping up in his mind. The time was short, and his strength could not be really improved. He could only deal with Kodak in front of him with exquisite moves. On the other hand, Kodak stuck out his scarlet tongue, licked off the blood from the sword, and said cruelly, Boy. Although I don't know who you are, but now that I'm angry, you don't want to die so quickly. After finishing speaking, he rushed up with a knife in his hand. He could feel that the screams outside the cabin were getting less and less. He didn't think that the enemy had already been killed. It was obvious that his men would be slaughtered. The 3 people outside are terrifying. Kodak didn't dare to hesitate any longer, thinking of killing the kid in front of him quickly so that he could run away with the devil fruit. So Kodak walked towards Ian step by step with a ferocious expression on his face, with the broad knife horizontally in his hand, which seemed to reveal a sharp aura. Ian's face was serious, but he was relieved. It seemed that Kodak's swordsmanship was more offensive, while the swordsmanship he had just learned was defensive and counterattack. As long as he can withstand the initial attack, he will definitely win in the end. He raised the 2 long knives and stared at Kodak, who had arrived in front of him. Clang. Clank. There was a sound of metal and iron clanging, and Ian's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and his body trembled slightly. Kodak, on the other hand, had a cold look on his face, and his steps were heavy and nimble, without feeling tired at all. Looking at Ian's trembling body, Kodak showed a cruel smile again. After all, this blonde boy is only a child of about 10 years old. How could his physical strength be comparable to him? The so-called long-term defense will lose. As long as he continues to maintain this attack rhythm, he must be the one who wins in the end. Thinking of this, the knife in Kodak's hand danced more quickly. After Ian regained his composure, his childhood experience in kendo emerged in his mind one by one. Although his tiger's jaw ached a little every time he received Kodak's knife, he still gritted his teeth and searched for opportunities to fight back. 2 minutes later, Ian had been retreating steadily and was forced to the hatch. Just when Kodak stabbed him in the chest again, his eyes suddenly lit up and he shouted, "Opportunity!" Puff. Kodak's broad knife completely pierced through Ian's left chest, but Ian did not stop at all. With a fierce momentum, he raised the knife and rushed forward, instantly crashing into Kodak's chest. The long knives in both hands were retracted inward at the same time, like a huge pair of scissors, crossing each other. Clatter. 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 Kodak let go of the handle of the knife, and took 3 steps back, with an expression of disbelief on his face, and a trace of blood emerged from his neck. No. Impossible. He hasn't eaten that devil fruit yet, he hasn't proved to those people that he can become stronger, and he doesn't want to die yet. Looking at Ian not far away with resentment, Kodak used his last bit of strength and threw the knife in his hand towards Ian's head. His eyes are wide open. Before he dies, he will drag this kid to hell with him. Swish. Suddenly, a figure wearing an orange cowboy hat appeared in front of him. There was no movement on his face. He raised 2 fingers and gently pinched the flying samurai sword. Clang. With a loud noise, the samurai sword that condensed all the power of Kodak was easily clamped by 2 fingers. Fire. Fire fist. Kodak's eyes suddenly protruded. If he had known that the enemy was the person in front of him, he would definitely leave without looking back. But it was too late to say anything now. Blood foam kept pouring out of his mouth, and he had no room to struggle anymore. Turning his head to look at the safe, Kodak's face was full of unwillingness, his head tilted to one side, and he fell directly to the ground with a plop, rolling to his feet. Puff. Blood gushed out of Kodak's headless body like a gaudy red fountain, forming a horrifying lake of blood on the floor. Dad. Mom. You may rest in peace. Tears welled up in Ian's eyes, and he finally succeeded in avenging those who were brutally killed by Kodak. With a plop, Ian's body fell to the right, straight onto the floor, and he was also severely injured by the broad knife stuck in his chest. Vaguely, Ian saw Ace rushing over before he passed out, and hugged him in his arms. The screams that had been screaming before had disappeared unconsciously. Except for the 4 of Ace, there were no living creatures on the pirate ship. There was no need for any sympathy for these scumbags who harmed ordinary people. Luo, quickly help Ian deal with it. Without Ace's order, Luo had already used the ability of the Fruit of Surgery. A circle of cyan light mask wrapped Ian's body, and then the sword light flashed, and the foreign object in the wound on Ian's chest was taken out directly. He treated Ian's wound with the medicine and gauze he carried with him, and after 10 minutes, Ian's breathing stabilized. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Actually, we can help him directly. Willie felt a little distressed. This time, without waiting for Ace to speak, Luo answered first. He said in a serious tone, "For Ian, the only way to truly get rid of this past is to get rid of his enemies with his own hands." From Luo's tone, Ace heard a kind of determination. Obviously, he not only talked about Ian's affairs, but also Luo himself had grievances that had to be resolved by himself. Luo's words shocked Willy, and he thought that Ace had also given him the opportunity to take revenge with his own hands. Gratefully looking at Ace, suddenly, a silver safe in the corner of the cabin attracted his attention. He walked over and saw a 5-digit combination lock on the safe. Although Willy could directly split the safe with a knife, it was inevitable that the contents would not be destroyed, so Willy had no other choice for a while. Ace came here to have a look, and after seeing Willy's helpless expression, he smiled, beckoned to Luo, and said, "Ro, open this box." Oh. Glancing at the safe, the power of the fruit of the operation was activated, and the door of the box was cut open with one knife. The fruit of surgery can be cut regardless of the material of the object, and only domineering can barely block it. It takes no effort to cut this ordinary steel door. Dang. Willy smiled. It's really good that his partner has such a convenient ability. Willy turned around and tore open the door of the safe, revealing a golden treasure box inside. "Captain. Take it." Not caring what was inside, Willy directly threw the treasure box to Ace. In his opinion, even his life belonged to Ace, let alone these extraneous things. Reaching out to take it, Ace was a little moved. With a smile on his face, Ace raised his hand and opened the treasure box. Boom. The familiar orange devil fruit appeared in front of Ace, and a strong desire suddenly surged in his heart, eager to take this fruit immediately. Click. Ace closed the lid of the treasure box forcefully, sweating profusely. Why? Why is there such a feeling? The one in the box is undoubtedly the burning fruit. It is not the first time Ace has seen it, but he has never felt this way. This feeling is like this fruit. It belonged to him. Ace is also a little fortunate now that his rebirth has changed the direction of the plot. Kodak discovered the burning fruit that was supposed to wait quietly until 5 years later. If it didn't come in time, Xiao Xiao Guo would really change hands. Ace turned to look at the two of Willy, and was about to speak, but was interrupted by Willy and the others. "Captain, I don't need a devil fruit, you can keep this fruit." Willy's expression was firm. Luo also responded, "I'm already a devil fruit capable user, so it's useless to give it to me, Captain, you can handle it yourself." After hearing what the two said, Ace stopped being polite, and put the fruit back into his arms. At this moment, there was a warm feeling in his heart. "I think I need a quiet island to take this devil fruit." Ace blushed, and he had a strong desire to swallow the fruit immediately. But there is another voice in his heart telling him that this time is different from the past. This time he swallowed the burning fruit, not only to solve the curse in the fruit, but also to prevent the abnormal fire in his body from happening, so he had to find a secluded place land. "I think you should be very urgent, Captain. I think it's on Wangchen Island next to you," Willy said. At this time, Luo had already found a room, put Ian on the bed, and walked over at this time, saying, "That's right, Captain, don't worry, we will definitely watch from the side." Hearing this, Ace laughed and nodded, and said, "Okay, then we decide to be here." The Don Quixote family hasn't found it yet. As long as Ace is faster, he should be able to solve the problem of burning the fruit before they arrive, and find the ancient weapon Pluto on Wangchen Island. After finishing speaking, Ace didn't waste any more time, and jumped out of the pirate ship first, and rushed to Wangchen Island beside him. He searched the island first, seeing that he could not easily find Hades, so he stopped struggling, found a cave, burrowed into it, sat down cross-legged, and took out the burnt fruit from his bosom. At this time, Luo and Willy had already rushed out of the cave, guarding both sides of the cave cautiously. Ace didn't hesitate anymore, and bit the bright orange devil fruit in his hand. Yuck. A sense of nausea penetrating into the soul made Ace's face turn pale, and his figure couldn't help shaking. Then, before he could recover from the nausea, the remaining devil fruit melted automatically, rushing into Ace's mouth as if alive. Ace's face turned red in an instant, as if a big bomb had been swallowed in his stomach. It seemed to have been burned into a ball of flames, and his stomach was about to be burned through and blown to pieces. Ace, who has the different fire system, can experience the magical energy of the devil fruit, but at the same time, he also clearly feels the evil curse entangled in the devil fruit. The magical energy of the burning fruit continuously elementalizes Ace's body, and his body tissue quickly turns into the same form as the flame. But when this energy moved to Ace's abdomen, it suddenly caused violent riots of several kinds of different fires, burning the evil curse in the energy of the fruit, making the different fires seem to come alive, restlessly in Ace's body move wildly. They want to burn out the curse in the flame of burning fruit, but at this moment the curse has merged with Ace, which makes these strange fires have nowhere to attack. The scorching heat in the abdomen gradually spread to the whole body. Ace's body was dripping with sweat, and suddenly he gritted his teeth, and the 3 different fires controlling the abdomen merged directly towards his body. He actually wanted to use his own body as a cauldron and the strange fire as fuel. While burning away the curse, he used the strange fire to forge his body and achieve the strongest elementalization. This process was extremely painful, and the time it took was much longer than Ace expected, and a whole day had passed before he knew it. Outside the cave, both Willy and Luo looked into the cave with worried faces, and the constantly trembling and jumping flames told them that Ace was facing a huge crisis. As soon as Luo gritted his teeth, he wanted to go in and help, but was immediately stopped by Willy. "Don't go in, the captain can only get through this difficulty." Willy was also worried about Ace, but he still said firmly, "There is a slight connection between the consciousness of the captain and me. He ordered us to stay outside." After hearing Willy's words, Luo could only stop his footsteps, guarding outside the cave anxiously, and kept looking in. But not long after, a woman's right hand suddenly grew out of thin air on the ground next to the cave, and a mouth grew strangely in the palm. Robin's voice came out of this mouth, and the tone in the voice was very urgent. "Willy, Luo, come here quickly. The ship of the Don Quixote family has been found here." "What?" The two looked at each other, and their eyes became serious. The changes in Ace were obviously at a critical moment, and the enemy came at a very bad time. "We must not let them disturb the captain," Willy said firmly. "Go. Stop them." After finishing speaking, he headed towards the coast first, and Luo didn't say a word, and followed quickly with a determined face. After a while, the two of them stepped onto the deck of the submarine. At this time, all the people on board had already walked out of the cabin, stood on the deck, and looked into the depths of the sea. Willy followed their line of sight and found that there were 3 pirate ships, flying the flag of the Don Quixote family, speeding towards Wangchen Island. "The top cadres, Toribol and Pika, are here." Violet used the ability to stare at the fruit, and looked at the pirate ship opposite, and said, "There are also several ordinary cadres such as Rao Ji. Doflamingo is not in the captain call." Hearing Violet's words, several people breathed a sigh of relief temporarily. If the strongest Doflamingo hadn't come yet, they might not be able to resist this wave of offensive from the opponent. At this moment, Willy suddenly turned to Luffy and said, "Luffy, can I give you a mission?" Luffy looked at Willy suspiciously. "After a while, the submarine will dive into the sea. You and Robin will go down together. You must protect your sister, you know." Willy paused and emphasized, "This task is very important. You must do it well." "Yes." Luffy agreed with a serious face, and immediately moved to Robin's side. Robin took a deep look at Willy, and with her wisdom, of course she understood Willy's true intentions. Willy didn't want Luffy to protect her, but wanted to use this reason to distract Luffy and let him out of danger temporarily. After all, Luffy is Ace's most cherished brother. Although he had seen through, Robin didn't point it out. Instead, he took Luffy and Violet with him, turned around and entered the cabin. It will be difficult for them to intervene in the next battle. Willy and Luo jumped onto the ship of the Bone Lotus pirates next to them, and watched the submarine dive rapidly and gradually disappear above the surface of the sea. "Actually, you don't have to do this." Luo saw that the submarine had completely disappeared, so he said, "The captain probably doesn't want his brother to be just a flower in the greenhouse." Willy looked at the enemy ship getting closer, but laughed. "I don't understand these things. I only know that I will try my best to kill anything that may hurt the captain in the bud." While speaking, Willy had already broken an iron railing on the pirate ship, and then spread his feet apart, posing a standard spear-throwing posture. A green lotus flashed between the eyebrows, and flames shot out from the palm, instantly turning the iron railing into a 6-meter-long flaming giant spear. In the next second, Willy's eyes widened. He aimed at one of the pirate ships in the distance, and suddenly threw out the flame spear. A blue dragon with a more terrifying momentum than before flew across the sky in an instant, heading straight for the ship. "Thieves, go away." "What it is?" On the pirate ship in the center, Toribol, Pika and other cadres were all gathered on the deck, but they had no way to deal with this sudden attack. They could only watch helplessly as the giant spear sank into their sides among the pirate ships. Boom. With a loud noise, the pirate ship was instantly plunged into a sea of flames. Whether it was people or things, they were all turned into fuel for the flames, making the flames jump even more intensely. Wow. Wow. The waves created by the explosion pushed the remaining pirate ships to scatter, and Toribol's face was ashen. If the attack was aimed at the cadres like them, he and Pika could still block it, but the other party obviously just wanted to eliminate the ordinary members around them, and they had nothing to do. Willy, your move is so powerful again. Luo looked at the flames on the sea and said with emotion. Of course. Willy broke another railing and said, my strength is linked to the strength of the captain. The captain becomes stronger, so I also become stronger. Whoosh. Another dragon of flames crossed the sky, bombarding a pirate ship again. And the next last spear, Willy finally pointed it at the cadres, narrowing his eyes slightly. Willy's right arm holding the spear suddenly swelled a circle, which actually increased the power of the spear again. Go. Boom. This time, when the spear swept across the sky, it had already made a thunderous roar. It moved forward, leaving a striking cyan trail, and with an unprecedented momentum, it suddenly blasted towards Toriba. You and others. Damn it. How dare you underestimate us? Pika's voice was extremely sharp, and with a burst of anger, he pulled out the long knife nearly 3 meters behind him. Before the spear hit his body, the powerful armed domineering had completely covered the long knife. Break me. Pika jumped up, with a fierce look on his face, and slashed the long knife in his hand onto the spear. Boom. The spear exploded, but Pika's face changed drastically, because the fire wave from the explosion did not disappear, but directly swept towards the pirate ship behind him. Walk. Toribol roared angrily, completely ignoring the ordinary members of the ship, leading the cadres to jump out of the pirate ship first, and rushing directly to Wangchen Island. What? The turbulent fire wave ignited, and the screams suddenly sounded. All the ordinary members of the ship were not spared, and all of them were reduced to pitch-black ashes. Da da da. Toribol finally landed on the shore with 3 cadres, and Pika was also covered in black, and rushed out of the fire waves in embarrassment, and jumped to Toripol's side. However, their brows seemed to be covered with ink, and their faces were extremely ugly. A group of their cadres were all present, and before they had time to make a move, they suffered such a big loss at the hands of their opponents. Shame.